Sup, my fellas. Don't forget to leave feedback, and enjoy the story. This world had become a dumping ground, where monsters roamed, intent on destroying civilization. The creatures cared nothing for conventional weapons. Humanity's last hope was the chosen few, possessing unbalanced skills. The strongest among them was K, our protagonist. But even he wasn't omnipotent. When he was betrayed by an influential lord, he found himself trapped with dozens of monsters. And so K died. Fortunately, he managed to return to the past, to the time before the apocalypse. MC was reborn as an infant. Everything around him seemed unreal. But knowledge about monsters remained in his memory. Here, K could use his ultimate power, with which he had absorbed the powers and abilities of the creatures he had killed in the past. Then suddenly, his mother entered his room. Still thinking like a hunted man, he demands to know who is there. A looming shadow makes him fear that someone from the organization has somehow tracked him even here. The figure reaches in gently instead of attacking. A red-haired woman appears and warmly claims him as her child, calling herself his mother. That tenderness leaves him completely stunned. As he takes in the peaceful room and the woman's ordinary behavior, he struggles to understand what kind of world this is. When the television comes on, the normal domestic scene feels even more unreal to him. Hearing casual voices outside and seeing no sign of monsters, he starts to suspect this world is untouched by the disaster he knew. He concludes that he has been reincarnated into another timeline where the Great Cataclysm never happened and the organization does not exist. That realization leads straight to one overwhelming conclusion. For the first time, he exults that he is truly free from the godlike authority that once owned him. Then he notices the date and fixes on a calendar marked 2020. The year shocks him because it means he has landed before the Great Cataclysm ever began. His triumph immediately sours when he remembers that, as a baby, he cannot do anything with the body he has now. Refusing to surrender his pride, he insists that he is still the great Lord K. He tries to prove it by standing up through sheer determination. Instead, he topples over and realizes he has been reborn so early that he has not even learned to stand yet. When he tries to speak, his strange infant throat betrays him too, leaving him even more trapped in this tiny body. Trapped in a helpless infant body, he panics because every second matters. He briefly considers depending on the red-haired woman who appears to be his mother. He immediately rejects trust and decides he will only use her if she has any practical value. He tests that hope by watching her move around the house, but agility is clearly not one of her strengths. Her fumbling convinces him she is no better with her hands. When she nearly starts a fire, he concludes she is catastrophically incompetent. Even her reassurance while cooking sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, and he feels doomed already. He collapses in frustration, realizing the road ahead with this caretaker will be miserable. A delivery arrives, and she goes to answer it while he watches from the crib. She remembers too late that receiving a package means direct contact and payment. Her confusion over the delivery makes him realize how long she has been cut off from normal life. He quickly connects the danger, knowing a courier would have been exposed to many people. The thought that the delivery man might be infected jolts him into alarm. As the door opens, he senses something is terribly wrong before he even sees the visitor. A cough confirms his fear that the threat has already reached their home. The supposed package is revealed to be a trap delivered by something monstrous. A box is thrust inside as if to lure them into accepting the danger. The courier mutates into a grotesque monster and angrily forces the package on them. Its tendrils flood the apartment, turning the room into a killing ground while he lies trapped in the crib. Refusing to die quietly, he steels himself to fight back somehow. He desperately searches for anything nearby that can become a weapon. He grabs the only thing within reach, a pillow. Knowing it is pathetic, he throws it anyway because he has no better option. Before his plan can matter, one of the monster's attacks tears toward him. The strike rips through the crib and nearly kills him on the spot. He is thrown free with the baby bottle still in hand, barely surviving the blast. Another tendril attack slices across the room, proving any direct contact means death. He realizes even brushing against that attack will kill his fragile body. Drawing on memories from his previous life, he assesses the situation like a veteran monster fighter. He identifies the creature as a power-type monster built around overwhelming force. Its raw strength is dangerous, but the head tendrils are the real problem. He considers risking a move for the bottle as part of a plan. The bottle comes apart, giving him a smaller piece he might be able to use. The monster's footing catches on the bottle, just enough to disrupt its movement. That confirms his read that this type is bad at tight turns, and he can exploit that weakness. He watches the creature crash through the room and recognizes the opening he needed. For the first time, he smiles with confidence instead of panic. He bitterly admits the brutal battles of his past life are now the only reason he can survive this. Then something impossible appears behind him, a weapon from his former life answering his need. The summoned weapon pierces the monster's core with a single decisive strike. Instead of vanishing, the weapon begins consuming the core. He stares in shock as he recognizes what has manifested. He realizes this is one of his own abilities from before reincarnation. The weapon is the tail of Tao Tai, a power he once possessed. That discovery shatters everything he thought he knew about his rebirth and the timeline of the coming cataclysm. Unable to explain any of it, he gives up on understanding and focuses on the opportunity. He remembers that the tail of Tao Tai can absorb a monster's crystal core and convert it into his own power. So he decides to test whether he can use that stolen power now. The absorbed energy answers immediately, proving his awakening has begun absurdly early. Compared to his past life, where he awakened at 7 and still reached rank S, this is on another level entirely. He smugly concludes that his current potential may be beyond even legendary rank. For a moment he indulges in fantasies of future greatness and domination. Convinced he no longer needs this place, he prepares to leave at once. But the moment he tries, reality interrupts his grand exit. His infant body refuses to cooperate, and he cannot even move properly. His struggle only cracks the furniture instead of freeing him. That tiny result reminds him how little control he still has. Worse, the damaged crib starts tipping toward him. His mother rushes in and calls out to save him. He braces helplessly as the danger closes in. A memory surfaces of his former life, when humiliation and starvation reduced him to eating dog food. He remembers being mocked as the organization's obedient dog. That old rage resurfaces, and he rejects being treated like a pet ever again. He wakes groggily from the aftermath of the fight. He realizes he must have blacked out. Seeing his mother beside him, he wonders if she was the one who saved him. He concludes the strain came from forcing too much power through a baby's body, and that he can only endure it for about 30 seconds. That limitation hardens his resolve to grow stronger as fast as possible. A small sound pulls his attention back to the present. He notices his mother quietly crying over a heavily marked diary. The notes reveal she has filled the diary with reminders about her child, and he begins to suspect he is the treasure she wrote about. Her grief is real, not performative. He realizes the bruise on her body may have come from protecting him during the attack. That clashes with his old memories of a mother who would have sold him to the organization without hesitation. Accepting that this woman is different, he decides to stay with her a little longer. Even so, he knows time is running out because the world is about to change within days. He predicts the next monster will appear very soon and very close by. His prediction proves correct when a worker outside suddenly begins transforming. The man melts into a blue slime-like creature. He forces himself to stay calm and think ahead, even as his mother calls for him. Before he can act, she excitedly tries to show him something new. She proudly reveals a huge dog the neighbor gave them as if it were a perfect gift for a baby. He is too stunned to react at first. Then he recognizes the animal as Reckon, the fierce dog from his previous life. He immediately sees that the dog is far too large for a child, confirming his mother's terrible judgment. But the more he thinks about it, the more useful the dog seems. He starts to warm to the idea. If trained properly, the dog could become both a combat asset and transportation. He decides an adult dog might actually be an excellent investment. His first step is simple: feed it and begin establishing authority. He offers food with the confidence of someone claiming a subordinate. The dog's vacant expression makes him doubt it understands any of this. Still, he encourages it to eat, already imagining its future usefulness. He grandly declares that he will train the beast himself. The dog immediately knocks him over instead, leaving him marked and humiliated. It turns away without the slightest respect. Furious, he realizes this stubborn mutt will not submit easily. His mother misreads the chaos as friendship and happily assumes they have bonded. While she cooks, she discovers she is out of flour. The dog and child are still wrestling when the next crisis arrives. As she searches for replacement flour, danger closes in from behind her. The blue slime monster slips into the apartment through the kitchen. Reckon notices first and charges without hesitation. The dog launches itself straight at the intruder. The slime swells to meet the attack. Reckon clamps onto the woman's clothing and yanks her away from the monster's reach. That rescue knocks her clear just as the slime surges through the kitchen. She is left confused while the dog keeps barking a warning at the unseen threat. He judges the slime weaker than the previous monster, but still troublesome because of its nature. Its liquid body makes ordinary cutting and stabbing nearly useless. Reckon keeps itself between the slime and his mother, acting as a guard. When the slime engulfs the dog, it starts changing shape around him. He recognizes the transformation and remembers that this monster's weakness is dryness, though exploiting it will be difficult. He searches frantically for anything in the room that can help. Then he spots the baby bottle and realizes it can become the key to a trap. He hurls the bottle's powder into the air like a cloud. The flour coats the slime and clings to its wet body. The moisture reacts violently, forcing the creature into a hardened, unstable form. Its body swells and stiffens as the drying process spreads. Rigid spikes and beams erupt from it, pinning the room with brittle structures. Just as he expected, the sudden loss of moisture throws the slime into panic. He follows up by trapping the weakened creature under an overturned bucket. Satisfied that the immediate danger is contained, he decides that will do for now. He basks in his success while his mother and the dog lie exhausted in the kitchen. His mother reaches for the flour again despite everything. She and the dog both end up coughing from the mess, leaving him to lament that he is surrounded by clumsy fools. She complains about her bad luck and goes to wash up, unaware the crisis is not fully over. He reflects that capturing the slime was fortunate because its body has many practical uses, including insect repellent. He also remembers it can harden into a shatterproof coating when spread over glass. Before he can secure it properly, the bucket shifts and he is knocked aside. The slime escapes confinement and darts away. Reckon lunges after it at once, refusing to let it flee. Dog and slime square off, each ready to strike. The slime chooses cunning over direct combat. He tries to intervene from atop the bucket, but he is still too slow. The slime slips through the open window and escapes outside. Watching it come and go as it pleases infuriates him. He vents his prideful anger while Reckon growls beside him. He quickly improvises by hooking the door handle to force it open. Armed with an umbrella and riding Reckon, he orders the chase to begin. He refuses to let the monster get away after all this. As they race downstairs, he realizes the insect-repellent form should not be able to fly, which means it has another objective. Reckon sprints through the grounds in pursuit. They spot the slime heading toward a lone girl outside, and he realizes he must stop it before it reaches her. The slime drops directly onto the unsuspecting girl's head. She looks up in confusion, not yet understanding the danger. The creature spreads over her from above, beginning to envelop her body. He wants to use his power to save her immediately, but he knows his body is already near its limit and may collapse if he forces it again. Even so, he understands that if the slime fully parasitizes the girl, the entire area will become a bloodbath. He recalls that in his previous life, handling a situation like this would have been easy. Relying on that confidence, he launches into action at high speed. Riding his dog companion and using the umbrella, he cuts through the danger with the ease he once had. He sweeps past a white-haired girl under attack, trying to shield her from the falling threat. Even while moving, he stays focused and judges the timing with a hard, determined look. Knowing his power only lasts briefly, he commits to a single decisive move. He sends his slime-like ability surging forward like a projectile toward the point of impact. He follows by binding the danger with a red thread-like power, intent on ending the crisis instantly. When the debris finally crashes down around them, he checks whether he arrived in time. The girl is alive and sees only the aftermath, leaving him worried she may have noticed his intervention. Before he can deal with that, she flees the scene, and he realizes she got away. He pauses, weighing the problem instead of chasing after her. He decides to let her go, and turns his thoughts to the troublesome mess left behind. As he is about to move on, something strange tugs at him and catches his attention. A transformed, spear-like tail suddenly emerges, revealing an unexpected new evolution. He is stunned to realize the tail can now hold a second ability instead of replacing the first one. Seeing both powers active together confirms that the abilities are truly coexisting. That discovery reminds him that in his past life he avoided combining abilities, and that caution still ended in his death, so he wonders why the tail changed now. He quickly finds the answer. The difference is his age. He remembers that the younger the body adapted by the monster system, the greater its eventual potential. Most children died from monster toxins before reaching that stage, which is why so few ever benefited from it. Because his current body adapted even earlier than before, he realizes his growth ceiling is far higher. That means his future potential may be enormous, and the thought excites him. His excitement breaks when he notices they have already reached home. He is surprised by how quickly the trip ended. The moment he gets down, his tiny body gives out from the strain. His slime spills out as his power and stamina start collapsing together. The protective slime trail around them dissipates, showing he can no longer maintain it. He admits he is completely spent and can barely keep going. That weakness forces him to confront a harsher truth than any ability limit. His physical body is still far too frail. Exhaustion overtakes him, and he drops flat to the ground. Even if his powers can keep monsters away for now, he realizes that alone will not be enough. His dog suddenly looms over him with a fierce, predatory stare, making him panic. The dog grabs him by the back of his clothes. Certain he is about to be eaten, he braces for the worst. Elsewhere, a red-haired woman finishes bathing and relaxes, refreshed and at ease. She senses something and turns her attention toward it. Her mood softens into a pleased, affectionate smile. Meanwhile, the dog simply carries the boy to a cushion and drops its weight over him protectively, not harmfully. Time passes quietly after the commotion. The dog falls asleep nearby, leaving the house calm. Once recovered enough to think, he starts applying his slime ability to the windows, vents, and drains. He turns the house into a temporary sealed refuge, hoping it will stay safe even if the great cataclysm begins soon. As he experiments further, he comes to understand the tail better and concludes it can store up to 4 abilities. For now, though, he can actively use only 2, and only for about 30 seconds at a time. With that limitation in mind, he decides the next priority for surviving the cataclysm is gathering supplies. A sudden realization sharpens his focus on that plan. He remembers that in the ruined future, many people died not to monsters but to shortages, looting, and desperate fights over resources. He concludes that stockpiling reserves early could prevent conflict, and even give him leverage to gather followers. He wants to start preparing immediately, but something in the current situation makes him hesitate. He realizes that once the infection spreads, crowded places like supermarkets will become instant death traps because even a single carrier can unleash countless monsters. Trapped in his weakened body, he admits he cannot handle a swarm of monsters on his own. While searching for another way to secure supplies, he notices a phone left behind by the woman in the apartment. He recognizes it as her smartphone and wonders if it can give him an opening. Curious about its owner and what it contains, he reaches for it. Finding it unlocked, he decides to inspect the landlord group chat for useful information. The chat shows residents half believing rumors about a virus that turns people into monsters, but no one is taking the threat seriously. Frustrated by their complacency, he creates an account and decides to force them to pay attention. He warns the group that catastrophe is imminent, urges them to hoard supplies, and offers survival guidance, only to be mocked as a delusional stranger. Their dismissal infuriates him because they are wasting the little time they have left. As he worries everyone will die before any organized response can form, a friend request suddenly appears. He accepts at once, hoping the new contact might be different. The requester, Hot, immediately asks whether he wants supplies and proposes a deal, and the name stirs his memory. He studies the message carefully, trying to confirm whether this is the person he suspects. He realizes the contact is likely Hot, a future information broker tied to the organization that will later emerge. His thoughts shift to the hidden network of screens and data that such a person would command. Elsewhere, Hot lounges in her lair and takes interest in the mysterious stranger who answered her. Amused, she decides this new exchange could become entertaining. She relaxes, fully confident she controls the situation. Even while teasing him for being cautious, she prepares to draw him deeper into negotiation. She offers unlimited supplies, making herself sound indispensable. She sends the proposal and waits for him to bite. To prove her reach, she boasts that she can provide anything from food and water to armor. Then she reveals the catch. The supplies are easy, but information is expensive, and she prices it at an absurd 100 million yen. Sensing he cannot pay, she lowers the barrier and offers the information in exchange for a 20% cut of whatever supplies he gathers. He immediately suspects from her tone and ridiculous pricing that she is still much younger and less established than she pretends to be. That realization makes him more cautious, not less. He challenges her credibility, and when she hints that refusing her could make him an enemy, he agrees to meet only after extracting the location. She says the information is already waiting in the mailbox of his own apartment building, proving she knows exactly where he lives. That confirms she is dangerous, because she should not yet hold the authority or reach she is displaying. He remembers that Hot is the kind of woman who weaponizes information and manipulates anyone she targets. Seeing through her attempt to lure him in, he decides to turn the game around and be the one who stirs things up. After a short sleep, he wakes with only a couple of hours gone. His stamina restored, he resolves to retrieve the information immediately. He plans to avoid the elevator cameras by using the stairs instead. But his current infant body makes even climbing difficult. Forced to improvise, he turns to the dog sleeping nearby. He tries to wake the dog and recruit it as transportation. The dog barely reacts to his tugging. It opens one eye with clear annoyance rather than obedience. When it lashes out with its tail, he realizes it is not as tame as he hoped. He quickly reins in the confrontation before it escalates. Spotting a treat, he decides bribery will work better than force. The dog remains asleep, but the bait has its attention. He crushes the treat into a more tempting handful. The smell finally rouses the dog enough to consider him. A simple food bargain wins the dog over, and he smugly notes how easy it was. Now riding the dog, he hurries toward the mailbox before the red-haired woman wakes up. He asks the dog to guide him to the mailbox area. The dog leads him straight to the correct row of boxes. Just as he reaches it, he notices a security camera watching the spot. He realizes Hot may be using the camera to verify exactly who came for the message. If she identifies him, his secrets could be sold immediately, so he concludes he must avoid being seen at all costs. He decides to mislead her instead of retreating. Before acting, he scans the entrance and surrounding area for every surveillance angle. He focuses and thinks through the trap carefully. He discovers that beyond the obvious building cameras, Hot has hidden 3 more cameras nearby. That only hardens his resolve to outplay her. Meanwhile, Hot smugly waits to see what fool will expose themselves next. Her confidence falters when something unexpected appears on her feed. She receives confirmation that the information has been collected. Shocked, she demands to know what happened. Reviewing the footage, she finds only a dog on camera and cannot understand how the pickup occurred without revealing the real collector. In a blind spot beyond the cameras, the boy and the dog safely regroup with the envelope. He had hidden the smartphone on the dog and used a decoy flyer to make the retrieval look ordinary. The dog waits in the stairwell while the trick finishes working. Once safe, the boy finally addresses the dog directly, revealing he has been treating it as a partner rather than a pet. He sends Hot a mocking message repeating her own 100 million yen demand back at her. The taunt enrages her because she realizes she has been played. Humiliated, she swears he will regret underestimating her. She unleashes a spider-shaped surveillance device and orders it to scan the entire building. The machine is a costly, high-performance tracker equipped for pursuit, surveillance, and electric attack. The spider races through the building, following the trail toward the dog and the boy. Its advance is abruptly interrupted by someone stepping on it. Hot screams over the loss of her 30 million yen gadget. A red-haired woman notices the commotion and steps into the scene. She calmly asks what Yaichan and the dog are doing there, catching the boy completely off guard. He instantly realizes his situation has become much more complicated. Far away, Hot mourns her ruined spider until she notices something even stranger. A new possibility dawns on her. Because the spider had a call function, she realizes the person who destroyed it may be able to speak with her directly. She grabs a headset to open a live line. Refusing to admit defeat, she boasts that she can now hear the other side and still has leverage. She threatens revenge and claims she can expose all of her enemies' secrets and past online. When no answer comes, she keeps pressing for a reaction. The boy quietly comments on her clothes and the cold, then realizes she cannot actually hear him from where he is. Hot cuts power in frustration, furious that she still cannot identify who tricked her. Her anger turns obsessive as she vows to uncover the true identity of the person humiliating her. Back at the apartment, the red-haired woman gently warns that lingering in such a place is dangerous. The destroyed spider reports that it can no longer transmit, leaving Hot with only a fragment of data. Hot abruptly surrenders the standoff, offering the information and even the supplies for free, which makes the boy wonder what all her bluster was worth. Morning arrives and the red-haired woman stands on the balcony as if nothing unusual happened. The boy realizes she thinks the dog opened the door by itself, and because she came out half asleep, she never connected the event to him. That lucky misunderstanding keeps his secret safe for now. Still, he concludes he cannot rely on the dog again for a while. He leaves the dog tied up at home and promises it will be useful later, while he turns his attention to the information he obtained. According to Hot, a warehouse-style supermarket will open soon, likely using stock she stole or diverted from others. Even so, he admits she is being unusually generous, and decides he must gather supplies as early as possible. He notices the supermarket flyer he planted is still lying around unnoticed, and realizes he needs to use it before the woman misses the chance. He wants to warn her about the end of the world, but knows he cannot say it outright without exposing himself. When she mentions there is only enough milk left for 5 days, he sees the perfect opening. He seizes on that shortage as his chance to steer her toward the supermarket. He knocks over the milk container to create a distraction, and she simply assumes it fell on its own while he pretends to be asleep. As she cleans up, something on the table catches her eye. She notices the supermarket flyer for the first time. Reading it, she decides they should check the news store next time, and the boy silently celebrates that his plan worked. Soon after, she takes him outside in a stroller under the clear daytime sky. She treats the outing as an ordinary pleasant walk, unaware of how dangerous the world already is. The boy endures the humiliating disguise she dressed him in, annoyed but unable to object. Back home, the dog remains behind to guard the apartment, while eating its food. As they move through the city, the scene still looks deceptively normal. At the building entrance, a uniformed official stops the woman before she can leave. He warns that an infectious disease is spreading and tells her not to go out, but she insists she needs powdered milk. The boy recognizes the man as a government worker and privately notes that the government itself will soon collapse. The official admits he is only following orders and urges her to return home quickly. Before he can finish reassuring her that things will calm down, something begins to erupt behind him. The infection suddenly transforms him into a massive armored monster right in front of them. The first sign is a violent convulsion that gives them no time to react. Blood sprays as the transformation tears through his human body. The woman freezes in shock while the boy instantly understands the apocalypse has arrived at their doorstep. The monster fixates on flesh as food and turns predatory at once. The boy identifies it as a strong proliferative type with no obvious weakness except its core. Unable to use his full power freely, he realizes both he and the woman will die if he misjudges this fight. With no time left to hesitate, he prepares to act. The woman snatches him up and tries to flee just as the monster fires a deadly blast at them. He is startled that she chooses to run with him instead of abandoning him. But he immediately sees that escape is hopeless because the creature is already closing the distance. Its speed far exceeds any human's, making pursuit inevitable. Searching for any advantage, he spots a fire extinguisher nearby. He focuses and commits to a desperate countermeasure. He breaks the extinguisher to flood the area with obscuring spray. The blast of suppressant erupts between them and the monster, buying a sliver of time. The creature pushes through the cloud, still hunting them. It emerges almost untouched, proving the extinguisher was only a delay. At that critical moment, the boy finally releases a burst of his own power. His strike slams the monster away and creates distance the woman could never have made herself. The impact shatters the surroundings and fills the area with dust and debris. Standing in the smoke with red energy gathering around him, he judges he has about 30 seconds before the dust clears. He steadies himself and prepares to finish the fight quickly. He decides that within those 30 seconds, he will settle everything himself. But he also has to do it before the woman regains awareness of what he really is. Seeing her unconscious from the earlier impact, he pulls her clear so she will not be caught in the next exchange. He recalls the key fact that a proliferative monster's core is in its head, and one clean strike there should kill it. Yet as he closes in, he realizes the opening is not as simple as he hoped. The monster rises from the smoke still fully battle-ready, untouched by the previous blow. He hardens his resolve and vows to end it with the next attack. The creature answers by charging up another attack of its own. Abandoning tricks, he prepares for a direct clash. Then he sees the monster move first and realizes it is already coming at him. The creature crashes down in a devastating attack, forcing the battle into a deadly head-on confrontation. The boy launches himself forward on command, sending red attack lines straight at the monster. His strike lands against the creature's armored body in a burst of sparks. He follows through with a rapid series of cuts, trying to break through its defense. The barrage reaches the monster's face, scraping across its jagged mouth. He darts past at high speed, using momentum to avoid being caught in front of it. Realizing how close that was, he sharpens his focus instead of panicking. Seeing the monster only barely avoided serious damage, he decides the fight will be settled by his own skill. His confidence hardens, and he declares himself the one who will win. With that resolve, he accelerates again and charges back into the fight. He closes in on the towering beast and attacks from near its upper body before it can fully react. The monster swings back, but he slips past the blow with precise movement. He circles the creature, peppering it with more red thread strikes while staying out of reach. The beast lunges after him, but his small size and speed keep him just beyond its jaws and fists. He realizes the monster's huge body makes it hard for it to accurately target someone as small as him. From that, he concludes the creature cannot bring out its full power in this form. As the monster smashes the ground trying to catch him, he sees the chase has reduced it to swiping at him like a pest. He stops near its bleeding leg, recognizing the accumulated damage and the opening it creates. The monster steadies itself, while the boy reflects that all the experience he has built up is still useful even in his current body. Judging that the transformed creature's power has also dropped, he decides one more hit should finish it. But before he can act, the monster abruptly punches into a nearby structure, changing the flow of the fight. Blue energy erupts around the creature as it unleashes a wide sweeping attack toward the boy. Caught off guard by the sudden shift in tactics, he realizes too late that the attack is already on him. The monster recognizes that his evasiveness keeps it from closing the distance, and adjusts accordingly. The boy considers a surprise attack, but without any way to draw the creature's attention away, he sees no opening. With time running out, he concludes that retreat is his only option. Then the red-haired woman wakes up and calls out, stunning him because she should not have been conscious yet. Still disoriented, she urgently asks where the item she cares about is. As her awareness returns, she immediately understands the danger in front of her. She rises amid the dust and faces the monster despite the overwhelming situation. Seeing the creature clearly, she can hardly believe what she is looking at. The boy tries to stop her, demanding to know what she thinks she is doing. He warns that there is no way she can fight something like that. Ignoring him, she plants her feet and prepares to act. She points a weapon at the monster and demands that it return the Ichan to her. The weapon is revealed to be only a taser, far less decisive than the boy expected. He stares in disbelief at how inadequate her choice of weapon is against this enemy. Even so, he immediately accepts that it does not matter as long as it serves a purpose. The moment the monster's attention shifts toward her, he seizes the chance to move. But the creature gathers blue energy into its hands, preparing another attack before he can capitalize. Its sweeping blast slams into the woman and knocks her away before she can do anything meaningful. She crashes hard to the ground, injured and helpless. Using the opening her sacrifice created, the boy surges upward in a violent red spiral. He commits to a finishing move, coldly declaring the start of his garbage disposal. The monster notices him only at the last instant, too late to defend itself. His red strike tears down through the creature with overwhelming force. The blow rips the monster apart and blasts it backward, ending the fight in a spray of blood and shattered ground. After the kill, he goes straight to the fallen woman. She weakly tells him it would have been dangerous without her there, touched that he risked his life to save her. He brushes off the praise and says she still has a lot of training left. As he reaches toward her, the moment softens, suggesting a gentler feeling beneath his blunt words. The boy regains consciousness, still groggy and hurt. He realizes someone is changing his diaper and hears that he has finally woken up. Seeing an unfamiliar man leaning over him, he is instantly alarmed and suspicious. He lashes out at the man as a dangerous pervert in his mind, rejecting his help. A red-haired woman steps in and apologizes for the misunderstanding. The man backs off and admits he seems to have frightened her child. Trying to make sense of them, the boy asks whether the woman gets along with the dog, and she confirms it. She adds that the man has been helping by looking after the dog, while the boy remains unconvinced. The boy cannot understand how someone who supposedly witnessed the monster can behave so calmly. A small detail suddenly catches his attention. He notices the woman's hair is wet and starts connecting it to what happened earlier. He recalls that she had been hiding and crying again, which deepens his concern for her situation. The man announces that everyone is going out together to stockpile supplies and tells the woman to get ready. The boy judges that cooperating to gather supplies is strategically reasonable. He abruptly remembers something more urgent. He realizes he never retrieved the crystal core from the monster he dealt with before. He spots where it should be. Outside near a wrecked vehicle, the glowing remains of the monster's core are still embedded in the ground. He crawls over and uses his altered appendage to pull the crystal free. As he secures the red crystal, he notes that the monster's hardening trait seems to have been incorporated into his own blood vessels. Testing it, he confirms he can manifest the crystal as a shield and is pleased with the result. A nearby voice interrupts his experiment. Hidden by the vehicle, he overhears the man on the phone dismissing the woman and her child as burdens. The man coldly argues that burdens are exactly what should be brought along in an emergency. He reveals his real plan. They can be used as bait, convincing the boy that the man is truly dangerous. Still on the call, the man orders someone to bring another car and gather even more supplies. The crystal slips and hits the ground, accidentally exposing the boy's presence. The man immediately turns hostile and demands to know who is there. The boy realizes he has blown his cover because of the dropped crystal. He freezes as the man notices him. The man recognizes him and approaches with false warmth. He crouches down, pats the boy's head, and probes how a baby could have made it that far alone. While keeping up the gentle act, he decides that killing a baby himself would be easy enough. The boy is horrified by how casually murderous and unstable the man is. Soon after, the group is loaded into a vehicle, with the woman seated beside the boy and keeping him close. As they set off, the boy realizes the same dangerous man is driving and regrets that he cannot use his power freely without exposing himself. Another passenger politely offers snacks, while the boy wonders why anyone is still going outside after seeing proof of monsters. The driver leaves briefly, saying he is heading out. Someone else signals that the plan is fine and the convoy proceeds. The vehicles pull away from the building and head into the city. Watching from his seat, the boy concedes that the others may simply be treating all this as ordinary self-preservation. He reflects that seeing monsters and corpses does not mean people can immediately accept that the world has fundamentally changed. Instead, most people hide their fear and pretend normal life is still continuing. Breaking the tension, the boy asks for a sandwich. The woman, identified as Hayashi Sakuragi of room 502, gently agrees to get one for him. A blue-haired resident named Den Sora asks for a hot dog as well. The woman opens a snack box and starts handing food around. The boy's mood brightens into a sly, satisfied grin as he receives attention and food. While taking the food, Den Sora remarks that life must be hard for the woman raising her son alone. Another resident, Lu Kuxian of room 104, bluntly adds that she looks too young and pretty to seem employed, while also questioning whether going outside is safe. A red-haired woman admits she had doubts, but she still chose to bring the child with her. She explains that the boy has become uncontrollable when left alone, so she decided keeping him close was safer despite his protest. Elsewhere in the vehicle, the group identifies her as Chinshur from room 504 and notes that Mrs. Hayashi will be joining their combat team. The long-haired man argues that she already proved useful by disabling a monster with a taser, and this time they even have the dog along. The dog waits in the truck as part of the expedition. Chinshur downplays her earlier feat, while the child privately doubts she has any real fighting ability. The man reassures himself that the trip should be safe because there ought to be no monsters around. That confidence vanishes the moment he senses something is wrong. At the same time, a woman outside runs through the city in danger. A violent impact erupts nearby, signaling an attack. The fleeing woman turns in terror as a monster reaches for her. A swarm of insect-like artificial humans surges in to hunt her down. Overwhelmed, the woman breaks down and screams for help. The cry shocks everyone in the vehicle into immediate alarm. The driver orders everyone to brace themselves. He tightens his grip and commits to a sudden maneuver. The van swerves hard and accelerates toward the disturbance. They race through the street, closing in on the attack site. The dog starts barking frantically, confirming the danger ahead. They arrive to find the woman pinned down while the insect monsters close in, and her desperate plea reaches them clearly. Chinshur tenses as she realizes how serious the situation is. Shaken by the chaos, she can only think how quickly the day has spiraled out of control. The child realizes they are now trapped in the middle of a monster encirclement. Outside, more insect creatures gather around the stopped van from every direction. Recognizing the insect heads and sting wounds, the child identifies them as artificial humans created by an insect tamer. He recalls that insect tamers are parasite-type monsters that convert humans into puppets, weak individually but dangerous in numbers. He studies the situation with growing concern. As the swarm keeps multiplying, he concludes that retreat would be wiser than fighting here. The driver realizes too late that they have been completely surrounded. With monsters already close enough to strike the van and even smash the windshield, the vehicle is no longer a safe barrier. The child knows he cannot act freely until the creatures are driven away from the van. He also remembers his own power is limited to a brief burst, so wasting it now could leave him helpless later. He looks over the passengers and wonders whether anyone inside can actually serve as combat strength. The blonde girl suddenly spots the woman outside still being dragged away. The victim is hauled across the ground as the monsters continue to swarm her. The blonde girl angrily demands action and insists they all have to save the woman. The child immediately notices her use of we all and questions whether she intends to risk herself at all. His suspicion deepens when the timid young man seems ready to let everyone else act in his place. The child dismisses that kind of opportunism as dead weight in a crisis. The blonde girl coldly decides the helpless victim is not worth endangering the group for, and tells them to abandon her. The older man cuts in and says it is already too late to save the girl as she is now. He points everyone's attention to the wound on the victim's neck. Because the bite matches the monster's sting, he concludes the woman has already been infected. The child is impressed by the old man's sharp eye and starts reassessing him as someone more useful than he first appeared. The long-haired man casually asks whether they should charge in anyway. But his words make it clear he is thinking less about rescue than about avoiding being wiped out by the swarm. The child begins to suspect this man may be willing to sacrifice everyone if it benefits him. That suspicion grows when he notices the truck driver behind them is the same unreliable type. The bespectacled young man suddenly volunteers to go fight, trying to prove himself. His bravado collapses immediately into panic, confirming he is all talk and no stability. The child forces himself to stay calm and search for a workable plan instead of relying on fools. Chinshur unexpectedly offers to go too and asks for a weapon. Her willingness to step out catches the child off guard. The bespectacled man instantly tries to back out now that someone else has volunteered. Before he can finish, a hidden stinger punches through his chest from behind. For a moment, he can only stare in blank disbelief at the wound. Then the reality of being impaled finally reaches him. The force of the strike hurls him out of the van and into the street. The monster's claws latch onto the vehicle as it forces its way inside. The blonde girl recoils in horror as the insect tamer itself appears before her. The true monster reveals itself by climbing directly into the van. Its stinger shoots forward and pierces the blonde girl through the neck. The insect tamer hisses in satisfaction as it infects another victim. The child realizes this is the controlling main body, and its tail lashes toward Chinshur next. He curses himself for not noticing where the real threat had been hiding. With no time left, he wonders whether he has to use his power right here inside the van. The monster's tail whips toward Chinshur at point-blank range. The child sees disaster coming but is still a heartbeat too slow. Chinshur freezes as the stinger closes in on her and the child. The attack is about to land when someone intervenes. The old man bursts in and strikes the insect tamer from behind, drawing blood and interrupting the kill. The child, startled by the sudden rescue, blurts out the obvious question of whether this creature is the leader of the swarm. The monster retaliates instantly with another stabbing tail aimed at the old man. He catches the stinger with his bare hand before it can pierce him. Then he tears into the insect tamer at close range with brutal force. The child is stunned by how monstrous the old man's combat ability really is. He can hardly believe the man is doing this empty-handed. The old man overwhelms the insect tamer in a savage grapple and keeps ripping it apart. Even while drenched in blood, he remains calm and focused. He wrenches the monster's weapon-like limb free as if dismantling prey. With another precise motion, he slices deeper into its body. The insect tamer collapses out of the van, apparently defeated. Breathing hard, the old man remarks that age has slowed him down. Chinshur is awed by his strength, while the child immediately warns himself not to relax yet. He senses there is still a problem. The fallen insect tamer's body begins to stir again, proving the fight is not over. The child admits he still does not know who the old man is, but he recognizes that the man understands combat. He concludes that a heart strike alone will not kill an insect tamer. The monster rises back up despite its wounds, confirming that insight. Unable to speak directly, the child decides he has to communicate the answer in the only way he can. He suddenly cries out at the top of his lungs to get the old man's attention. The warning makes the old man look back just as the monster moves again. He notices the tail coming for him from a blind angle. The stinger slams into the floor where he had been standing, narrowly missing him. That confirms his suspicion from his military past that some enemies cannot be killed by simply piercing the heart. The child reacts to the revelation with alarm, recognizing the old man's background. The old man accepts the clue and immediately shifts tactics. He plants himself for a finishing attack. Then he launches a crushing blow that tears through the monster's body. When it still refuses to die, he abandons any hope of a clean kill. He decides on the only remaining method. Using sheer physical force, he resolves to rip the insect tamer completely to pieces. Blood and fragments explode as he carries out that decision. Watching him, the child realizes he should have recognized the old man's battlefield judgment and combat knowledge much sooner. He finally understands that this man comes from the army. From memories of his previous life, the child recalls hearing rumors about the army after the old government collapsed. He remembers that the army became the strongest force fighting monsters and also stood against the organization. Among them, the Special War Department was said to be the army's core, famous for unique combat methods. With the immediate threat gone, the child's priorities snap back to survival and supplies. The old man urges them to keep moving forward instead of retreating, while the child starts thinking about how to secure this powerful ally. He weighs several manipulative options, from invoking the army to using HOTS information or simply staying close enough to force protection. By the end of that scheming, he settles into a quietly predatory mood. The old man notices the child's expression and pats his head, amused. He politely asks Chinshur to stay behind him with the child so he can protect them. Flustered but earnest, Chinshur agrees and promises not to become a burden. She thanks him for saving them, and he admits the child's cry saved his life in return. The old man teases that foolish people only chase benefits, and the child bristles at being read so easily. The old man warns that the child's calculating personality could someday ruin him. For now, the child reluctantly accepts the warning because the man is still useful. The group reaches a large store that could solve their supply problem. But when they arrive, the entrance is locked, making the old man wonder whether the place has already shut down. Chinshur checks the notice and is confused because it says the store should be open. The child immediately suspects HOT has remotely disabled the store's normal operation. A moment later, the shutter opens on its own. Someone inside is clearly controlling access electronically. The long-haired man reveals he had a friend open the door for them. That claim makes the child instantly suspicious. His suspicion hardens when a message from Hot says the door had already been opened before they arrived and that she saw the man's car on camera. The child realizes this man has been lying and may be connected to Hot or acting behind everyone's backs. Even so, once inside the store, the child is too exhausted to focus on anything but the chance to rest and gather supplies. Chinshur marvels at the huge warehouse while the child privately decides this unexpected opportunity may still work in his favor. Seeing there are no cameras inside, he relaxes slightly because his identity should remain hidden. Then he notices the old man brought a weapon case with him, confirming he came prepared for more than shopping. To the child, that case is exactly what one would expect from a former Special War Department soldier. He starts looking for the long-haired man again, unwilling to let that threat out of sight. Chinshur, still innocent to the danger, only worries about the lack of staff and how they are supposed to pay. A sudden clap draws everyone's attention. The long-haired man steps forward with false cheer, telling them not to worry. He announces that the entire warehouse and everything in it has already been bought by his organization. The dog erupts in furious barking, and the old man immediately treats the man as an enemy. Dropping the act, the long-haired man admits he only used the group to get inside and says they are no longer needed. The child goes still as the betrayal becomes undeniable. When he sees the lotus-shaped mark on the man's arm, he recognizes it at once. He realizes the man belongs to the organization. The trader declares the supplies to be the private property of the East Lotus Society. He warns them not to object and specifically threatens the old man not to move. The child identifies the East Lotus Society as the forerunners of the organization and the enforcers behind the hunting project. He remembers they were criminals even before the calamity. Once they sensed disaster coming, they began hoarding supplies ahead of everyone else. Now the child understands why the man felt wrong from the beginning, because that smug voice belongs to exactly the kind of enemy he feared. The child, furious and unafraid, decides that whether this man is the bastard or the new boss makes no difference because he intends to kill him. An older man realizes too late that their group has already been surrounded. As the trap becomes clear, the others understand they were lured into this position. Recognizing their enemy as the East Lotus Society, the older man immediately shifts to a desperate plan to eliminate the leader first. He attacks with lethal intent, trying to strike before the situation closes in on them completely. Instead of landing the blow, he triggers a hidden explosive and hurls the weapon away as the blast erupts between them. The younger man sees the thrown object snagged above them and realizes the attacker has turned the whole room into a death trap. The older man orders everyone to flee, understanding the explosion is only the beginning. Gunfire and detonations rip through the storage area, throwing the scene into chaos. Amid the destruction, the supposed boss remains unnervingly calm, which immediately alarms his enemies. His faint smile makes it clear that the chaos is unfolding exactly as he expected. The older man finally grasps that they have walked into something far worse than an ambush. The calm man reveals the source of his control by pressing a remote detonator. A massive blast tears through the stacked supplies, but he stands untouched while the older man is caught in the shockwave. The older man is stunned that his target remains standing at the center of the destruction. The explosion sends him crashing away through the debris. He barely manages to catch himself as smoke and dust flood the floor. Bruised and struggling, he tries to rise from the wreckage. Before he can recover, a gun is pressed to his head and blood runs down his face. The victor coldly warns him that any movement will get him killed. His finger settles on the trigger, showing the threat is immediate and real. The command not to move becomes absolute as the gunman prepares to fire. A red-haired woman suddenly intervenes, aiming her own weapon and demanding to know why he is doing this. Her interruption forces him to pause and turn his attention away from the wounded man. She steps forward despite the danger, refusing to back down. He mocks her for asking such a naive question in the middle of a massacre. Still holding him at gunpoint, she insists she is serious and challenges whether he can still pretend innocence if she shoots. He answers by framing the conflict as simple scarcity, claiming there are not enough supplies for everyone to share. Amused by her moral outrage, he dismisses her as laughably out of her depth. The child and the dog remain beside her, as she refuses to let him act like he controls everything. He begins explaining that when he went to collect money that day, he found the owner already dead. Rather than being troubled, he saw the death as an opportunity and lost interest in the owner himself. He says that just as he was about to get rid of the dog too, he encountered her instead. From that moment, he decided the dog would become his opponent's burden instead. He recalls her innocent delight at seeing the animal, which made his plan even easier. Seeing that she had both a baby and a dog gave him exactly the kind of vulnerable target he wanted. He took pleasure in deciding to leave the dog with her, knowing it would make her life harder. He points out that even with an infant at home, she still chose to take in a full-grown dog. He twists her compassion into ridicule, marveling that she survived despite such a reckless choice. The child bristles with anger as the man turns from the dog to the issue of the supplies. He bluntly declares that there is obviously not enough to divide, so sharing was never an option. As he makes that ruthless logic clear, movement from outside signals that his reinforcements are closing in. More armed members of his group arrive, tightening his control over the room. From above, the scale of the encirclement becomes obvious as numerous enemies spread through the warehouse. With guns trained on the survivors, they sneer that people too weak to understand reality or their own limits deserve to die. The child glares back in fury, and the man's words reveal the creed behind the slaughter: the weak exist to suffer. That cruelty triggers a memory of a prisoner being humiliated for eating rats while locked away in filth. The remembered victim's tear-filled eyes show the depth of that past torment. The dog suddenly launches forward, breaking the paralysis of the standoff. In an instant, the dog places itself in the center of the gunmen, forcing all of their weapons to swing toward it. The baby acts at once, launching a slime creature forward on command. The slime crashes into the room in a burst of force and electricity. In the darkness, the adults panic, fumbling for light and shouting for the shooting to stop. One armed man realizes his shot has gone wrong and curses the situation. The baby hardens his resolve and prepares to counterattack. He surges upward with red energy, aiming straight for the gunman. The baby closes in from above before the man can properly react. The gunman tries to fire again despite the confusion. Before he can, an older man intervenes and knocks him aside, disrupting the attack. Both the old man and the baby are startled by the sudden interruption. The gunman is sent reeling away from the confrontation. The baby realizes the old man has now noticed him. He immediately understands that being seen puts him in danger. A grim thought follows: if the military learns a compatible baby exists, he could be seized and turned into a research subject. The gunman fires anyway, escalating the danger. The old man moves through the dark room with practiced speed. Seeing the baby's unnatural behavior, he begins to suspect the child is a monster. The baby feels the pressure of that suspicion closing in. The old man lunges to seize him before he can escape. The baby slips away and hides among the shelves, while the old man grows more certain that something is wrong. The old man sweeps the area with a flashlight, searching carefully. The beam strikes nearby, threatening to expose the baby's position. From above, the baby considers destroying the light, but hesitates because the searcher is only an old man. He clicks his tongue and decides that if necessary, he will take the old man out first. Before he can act, something else catches his attention. The old man, the red-haired woman, and even the dog all register the same new disturbance. A slime drops from above, making the old man realize a monster is present. The others shine a light toward it and demand to know what they are seeing. Under the beam, the creature is identified as slime. The baby realizes everyone's attention has shifted from him to the monster. He is pleased by the unexpected cover. Using the distraction, he sends his red threads toward the shopping cart. He quietly repositions himself inside the cart, keeping up the act of being an ordinary baby. Meanwhile, the slime creeps up behind the old man. The old man senses the danger at the last moment. The slime wraps around him and reshapes itself into his likeness, creating a duplicate. The real old man faces the copy in alarm as the imitation finishes forming. The clone attacks immediately with monstrous aggression. Chaos erupts as the duplicate assaults the old man, and the others shout in confusion. The old man quickly grasps what the creature has done. He concludes that the monster created a clone of him and braces for a troublesome fight. The clone warns him not to come closer, as if trying to control the battlefield. Elsewhere, the red-haired woman confronts another slime-formed figure while the baby in the cart cries to maintain his disguise. The baby reasons that the crying double will help everyone believe the earlier suspicious child was not the real one. Still acting helpless, he inwardly urges the old man to hurry and deal with the mess. When the slime copy comes near the cart, the baby tests it and realizes its body is soft. The old man strikes hard at the clone, trying brute force to put it down. He follows up by swinging a shovel-like tool with full force. The blow drives the clone to the ground, but it does not end the threat. The old man realizes simple decapitation is useless, because a slime monster regenerates immediately, and may not even have a true head. An older man realizes the slime-like monster will be troublesome to deal with. He immediately drives a metal rod into the floor to set up a countermeasure. He slams down a heavy machine and activates it without hesitation. As the device whirs to life, he identifies the creature as a monster similar to a slime. While the child panics and warns everyone away, the old man prepares to reveal the monster's weakness. At the same time, the red-haired woman struggles to hold back a blue humanoid threat at close range. The old man reveals that the slime creature is vulnerable to electricity. The machine discharges power through the area, shocking the blue monster and drying it out at the same time. The child's body begins to glow with red lines, signaling that he is about to use his own power. He unleashes a violent burst that smashes into the slime creature with overwhelming force. The attack proves that the monster is also weak against excessive damage. The old man is struck by the aftermath but stays conscious through the shock. Recovering at once, he fires his shotgun to keep pressure on the creature. Even after being blasted apart, the slime starts reforming behind him, showing it is not finished yet. The red-haired woman moves to intercept as the reformed monster reaches toward her. Watching from the cart, the child grudgingly admits the old man handled the fight well. A beam attack streaks in, and the woman shields herself while the slime is struck again. The old man concludes they somehow managed to conceal the child's involvement. A tense silence follows as both the old man and the child realize the danger may not be over. The old man notices the slime is still alive, though clearly damaged by his earlier hit. The child confirms the old man's attack really did injure the creature. Nearby, a battered man emerges from cover and refuses to let the monster escape. He stares ahead in grim focus, as if recognizing something important. The child darkly decides he can finish the monster himself if necessary. But when he sees the battered man fighting the slime directly, he hesitates because using his power now would expose his identity. Before he can decide, the situation changes abruptly. A shopping cart crashes aside, throwing the scene into confusion and making the woman cry out. She turns in alarm as the battered man makes his move. He declares that he is taking the child instead. With the gun aimed at them and the child in his grasp, he forces everyone to drop their weapons. The child goes quiet for a beat, taking in the sudden hostage situation. Then he realizes this reversal may actually work in his favor. The kidnapper repeats his threat, making clear he will kill the child if anyone resists. The old man and the red-haired woman freeze, unable to act recklessly. At their feet, the damaged slime begins moving again in secret. The creature suddenly surges up behind the kidnapper, startling everyone. As it engulfs his head, he is left in shock at what has grabbed him. He fumbles for a grenade, trying to salvage control of the situation. The grenade detonates in a violent explosion. The child endures the blast and stays alert through the chaos. In the wreckage, a valuable first-grade crystal core is exposed. Using the confusion, the kidnapper snatches the child and flees through the smoke. Something among the debris catches attention, suggesting the blast changed more than expected. The kidnapper rushes out with the child before the others can stop him. Outside, he pauses only long enough to catch his breath while keeping the child pinned under control. He curses the slime for refusing to die, only to find it has followed him again. Before the slime can finish him, he hears one of his allies call out to him. A larger group of armed accomplices arrives, revealing this abduction was backed by more people. The child realizes the enemy force is bigger than he expected. The kidnapper admits to his allies that the plan went off course because something unexpected happened. A scarred man urgently orders his subordinate to ready the car, preparing to move at once. Before they can leave, he is jolted by a sudden realization. He recognizes the culprit as the masked man marked with the word lie and sees that he has finally found him. He recalls that although the man hid his face, he once glimpsed the word lie on his neck. The baby in his grasp also recognizes the enemy and is stunned to see that face again. The man notices the child staring and reacts with suspicion. His attention shifts when he senses something strange nearby. He discovers several people already collapsed inside a spreading red contamination. The baby identifies the substance as crimson dust. He immediately understands the danger and grows grim. He remembers that crimson dust is lethal to humans. Anyone who survives contact with it mutates into a monster instead. The memory of those grotesque transformations confirms how horrific the outcome can be. Even the resulting forms vary wildly, becoming unnatural abominations. Worst of all, the transformed victims lose themselves and attack other people. One of the monsters notices them. It lunges straight for the doorway. The man braces himself as the attack comes too fast to avoid cleanly. Rather than protect the child, he coldly throws the baby forward to serve as bait and cover. The baby realizes he has been made the decoy, but refuses to accept being treated as helpless. Determined to fight back, he decides to reveal the power he had been hiding. He draws out a red crystal core. The core activates and floods him with energy. That power spirals around him as his body begins to change. Dark matter and shards gather into a new form. His expression hardens as the transformation completes. He unveils his true combat form and claims this is his real power now. With confidence restored, he decides to fight without restraint. The charging monster dives at him first. He cuts it down in a single overwhelming counter. Feeling the merged crystal cores working together, he realizes they let him use a new technique through a body that behaves like a living shadow rather than flesh. More mutated creatures begin to gather around him. A massive many-eyed monster rises and looms over the battlefield. It attacks immediately, trying to crush him with brute force. The blow slams down with monstrous weight. He answers by shaping his shadow into a coiling weapon. The shadow extends outward like a piercing drill. The strike tears into the giant monster and drives it back. He quickly learns that this new body is far easier to control than before. Testing that control, he compresses his shadow into a concentrated attack. The technique detonates through the monster's body. After the blast, his shadow form settles back onto the ground. The scarred man, shaken by the sudden reversal, demands to know what this being really is. The transformed fighter taunts him for not having witnessed the earlier change. He treats the terrified man like the next target in line. Then he calmly announces that the man's turn has come. The threat lands hard, and the man's fear spikes. The fighter's predatory grin makes clear he intends to settle an old score. He launches himself forward in a blur. As he closes in, he declares that the man will pay for what he did in a previous life. He descends on him like an executioner. At the last second, the man spots an opening and reacts. He pulls a handgun and fires desperately. The shot explodes against the target. But the transformed fighter dismisses the bullet as laughably slow. He tracks it effortlessly in midair. He notes that even this temporary body far surpasses the baby's original body in speed and ability. At the same time, he realizes he still does not fully understand the limits of his dark shadow power. He lets the bullet fall aside, deciding he will study those limits later. The gunman can only stare and ask if he has become a monster. Instead of answering, the fighter seizes him by the face. He hurls the man away with contemptuous force. The man crashes down bloodied and barely conscious. The fighter advances, leaving no doubt that he means to finish it. He declares that this is the end for his enemy. The man spits blood but refuses to break. Remembering an earlier warning, he realizes the story about this power was true after all. The child is startled to hear that someone else had already known about him. Still grinning, the man reveals a syringe and warns the child not to think the fight is over. He prepares to inject himself without hesitation. Before he can, a mass of flesh suddenly engulfs him. The transformed fighter connects this to old research by the organization, which had been developing drugs even before the Great Cataclysm. He suspects this is one of those drugs, something meant to create monsters that retain a sense of self. That possibility shocks the child. A new many-eyed creature begins to form from the writhing mass. Its body stabilizes into a terrifying self-aware monster. The child cannot understand why this man of all people has become something so unusual. The creature towers over the fighter, proving it is far beyond the mindless mutants from before. It attacks with enormous descending force. The fighter blocks, but the impact is heavier than expected. He is driven back under a barrage of follow-up strikes. For the first time, he admits the enemy is much tougher than he anticipated. The monster presses the advantage and bears down on him. The fighter splits and shifts his shadow body to evade the crushing assault. Even so, he senses something is wrong with the exchange. A hidden strike catches him and sends him reeling. He realizes the enemy has been manipulating the fight from the start. As blood sprays, he understands too late that he walked into a trap. He forces his body back together and refuses to stay down. He snarls that he will not be killed by the same enemy again. The monster looms above him, still in control of the battlefield. Its many eyes watch for the slightest weakness. The fighter dashes away to regain space and rethink the fight. He leaps to higher ground to avoid being cornered. Facing the monster again, he reminds himself that his past self and present self are not the same person anymore. He vows that he will not die a second time. A sudden explosion interrupts the clash. The fighter is caught off guard and looks for the source. An older man with a heavy launcher has arrived and taken aim at the giant eye monster. He identifies the target as the big eye monster he has been hunting. Seeing the situation, he decides to use special ammunition he stole from the East Lotus Society. He loads the weapon and commits to using it here. He fires the enhanced round. The blast tears into the giant monster and rocks its body. The transformed fighter repeats the phrase "Big Eye Monster" and starts connecting it to something he has heard before. Then the realization clicks into place. He remembers a blindfolded woman from the organization warning that this world would soon face disasters. She had urged him to join the organization if he wanted to survive and had shown him an identification tag marked number 10. To win him over, she offered him a gift from the organization. She claimed it would help reveal his true nature and called it a talisman. Though he distrusted her, he had still wondered what his true nature really was. That memory leads directly to the moment he chose to take the injection. After using it, he felt as if he had finally understood himself. What he discovered was a nature built to exploit the weaknesses of others. His memory shifts to an ordinary street from before his transformation. As a child, he casually told a woman that her husband was cheating on her. The accusation enraged and humiliated her. He calmly pointed out the husband nearby, proving the claim was true. Then he repeated the husband's cruel insult, telling her he had mocked her as an ugly pig. That final cruelty shattered her self-control. She attacked her husband in a frenzy while he tried to deny it. The husband retaliated and the marriage collapsed into open violence. The woman was left broken, sobbing over the ugliness she already feared in herself. The boy then approached her gently and offered to show her a better place. He lured her with promises of kindness and a world where no one would bully her. Looking back, he admits he spent his life exploiting wounded hearts and draining people dry. Even as he turned into a monster, his mind never stopped being human enough to scheme. He names his true self at last, a manipulative con artist reborn as a level 4 monster called Trickster, Lai. Back in the present, Lai explains that his power creates hallucinations based on what people fear most. Because of that, he tells his opponent that reckless attacks will never reach the real target. Confident in his advantage, Lai decides to wait for the perfect opening and claims victory will be his in the end. Before he can capitalize, something strikes him from outside his expectations. Lai is stunned because the attack came from someone he had not accounted for. The older hunter is still in the fight, aiming his launcher again despite the danger. Lai recognizes him as the same stubborn man interfering once more. Furious, Lai unleashes a storm of deadly red projectiles to kill the old hunter. The hunter dives for cover as the barrage shreds the area around him. He survives the first wave, breathing hard but refusing to retreat. He raises the launcher again for another shot. He fires from cover to keep Lai pinned down. Lai blocks the blast, but the interruption forces him to defend instead of finishing his prey. Annoyed, he curses the hunter's persistence. Lai retaliates with a direct killing strike. The attack detonates through the hunter's position in a chain of explosions. Smoke and debris obscure the field, and Lai complains that he cannot see clearly. Then he senses that something is wrong. He realizes his target has vanished from sight. A sudden movement slips into his blind spot. The transformed fighter appears behind him and announces that he has found the real body at last. He drops into strike, while Lai can only curse as his hidden position is exposed. The hooded enemy is shaken that his target broke free from the hallucination so quickly. He struggles to understand how someone he thought insignificant could recover almost immediately. Trying to reassert control, he belittles his opponent as nothing more than a mere level 4 conman. He reduces him further to a deceitful insect who only tricks people. Convinced the man should be beneath him, he insists there is nothing exceptional about him. But the black-clad fighter answers with overwhelming force, striking hard enough to knock the hooded man off balance. His red eye snaps wide open as he realizes the fight is no longer going according to plan. He is hurled across the ground, scrambling to recover from the sudden reversal. He recognizes the attack pattern and curses the return of those troublesome tentacles. In desperation, he unleashes his red-eyed hallucination power again, flooding the battlefield with distortion. Yet even under the renewed assault, the black-clad man remains clear-headed, leaving the enemy stunned that the illusions still cannot take hold. For the first time, real fear shows on the hooded man's face. Panicking, he tries to kill him outright with a direct barrage instead of relying on deception. The black-clad fighter welcomes the attack, admitting the enemy has reminded him what death feels like. He dives in with lethal intent, deciding to answer by unleashing his full power. The hooded man braces himself, alarmed by the sudden surge. The impact lands violently, tearing through the area and smashing the hooded enemy under a storm of force. Green fluid begins pouring down, revealing that the enemy has been badly damaged. Even so, he hurriedly gathers himself and clutches at his wounded body to stay standing. He remains upright through the smoke, injured but not yet finished. Seething through the pain, he spits out his hatred for the man who wounded him. The black-clad fighter advances without hesitation to finish the job. Standing before his injured foe, he mocks him by asking if this is already the end. He answers his own taunt by declaring that everything so far has only been the beginning. He reveals a far greater threat is coming soon. Within hours, red dust will fall and begin humanity's first apocalypse, a spreading tide of deformity. That revelation jolts the hooded man, who suddenly realizes something important. He tries to stop the execution with a plea to wait, but the black-clad fighter refuses to hear any last words. The hooded man realizes too late that he has lost the chance to bargain. A crushing strike follows, blasting him apart in a burst of force and debris. Watching from afar, an older man recognizes the significance of what just happened. The black-clad fighter keeps moving through severe injuries, and his observer is unsettled that he can still attack in that condition. The fighter stays focused and decides the surest way to end this is to take the enemy's head. He closes in for the finishing blow. At the last instant, a red-haired woman's voice reaches him and calls him Eiji-chan. The sound shocks him badly enough to break his concentration. The woman appears and asks if he is about to kill her mother. He immediately understands that the enemy is exploiting this emotional weakness and bitterly acknowledges the trick. Before he can recover, he is struck from behind. Explosive attacks tear into his body in rapid succession. The barrage sends him crashing away and gouges out the ground around him. He ends up kneeling in the rubble, visibly battered. Realizing the situation has turned against him, he admits this is becoming troublesome. The hooded enemy rises again with a mocking laugh, proving he survived. He reveals a blade and boasts that the black-clad fighter cannot kill him. The fighter instantly recognizes the weapon as a serious threat. He recalls that being stabbed by it would expose his heart completely, and the enemy realizes he knows exactly what that means. The hooded man explains the blade's terror. To his eye, it makes thoughts, movements, and everything about a target visible with perfect clarity. Using that advantage, he counters the fighter and taunts him for already being near his limit after a single strike. Frustrated and cornered, the black-clad man admits he is running out of options. He decides his only remaining choice is to rely on the old man. A shot tears through the smoke, but the hooded monster avoids a clean hit as the fight keeps moving at close range. The masked fighter realizes an ordinary gun is useless against a fourth-class monster, while the creature smugly notes it can track his position as well. Laughing, the monster rushes forward, convinced it has cornered its prey. It grandly declares itself a lord and calls out for the old man, certain he is nearby. When it checks the hiding spot, it finds only a decoy outline and realizes the old man is gone. A dropped grenade reveals the trap that was left behind for it. The monster finally understands the danger, but too late. The grenade detonates in its face and blasts the area apart. The explosion hurls the creature back and breaks its momentum. From the smoke, the masked fighter confirms the old man anticipated this opening and used the grenade perfectly. Reeling and clutching its head, the monster is left exposed while the fighter advances through the smoke. The fighter praises the old man's sharp thinking, satisfied that the plan worked. Then he abruptly realizes the old man himself is nowhere to be seen. At that moment, a knife flashes in from behind. The old man bursts out of the smoke and drives in with a savage close-range attack on the monster. The creature recognizes too late that the old man has turned the tables on it. The old man continues the assault, carving into the monster before it can recover. Enraged and bleeding, the monster lunges to kill him outright. But when the old man calls it lie, the monster freezes, shaken that he knows its true name. The masked fighter steps in and offers to show the monster the future waiting for it. Confused, the monster can only stare back. The old man immediately exploits that hesitation and fires, striking the monster again. The hit leaves it stunned and off balance. Keeping the pressure on, the old man condemns the creature for underestimating them. A violent purple psychic force suddenly floods the monster's mind and drags it into a vision. It is shown a bleak memory or prophecy of a man crushed by contempt, told that no matter what he does he will remain worthless. The humiliation continues with the image of that broken man smoking in defeat, still branded useless. Even a mocking child version of him appears, reducing his future to that of a loser. The masked fighter coldly presents this as the future the monster is heading toward. The monster panics and rejects the vision, horrified by the possibility that this could be its fate. The despairing image of that ruined future deepens its terror. Clutching its head, the monster insists such an outcome cannot be real. It lashes out wildly while denying the future being forced on it. Desperate now, it demands to know what comes after that. Its power erupts in a violent red surge that tears through the smoke. Turquoise fluid splatters across the ground, showing the backlash is damaging its own body. The monster screams as the strain overwhelms it. The blast throws the old man away and sends him crashing hard across the battlefield. He lands sprawled out, still clutching his knife and gun, momentarily stunned by the impact. As the masked fighter looks up, the monster begins changing into something even worse, and he realizes the situation has escalated. Even so, he advances without hesitation, dismissing the creature's future as irrelevant to him. With a grim smile, he tells the monster that this time it was the one that got deceived. A red spiral of power engulfs the old man's awareness and pulls him into a vision of his own. He is left shaken, unable to understand what he is being shown. The vision reveals fragments of a monstrous crown being and a red-haired woman, hinting at buried truths or connections. More images follow of doomed children and a ruined city, suggesting catastrophe on a much larger scale. The old man stares in alarm as the meaning of these scenes begins to unsettle him. He focuses on a single ominous red light, trying to comprehend what he is witnessing. That light resolves into the core of a grotesque many-eyed entity, exposing the source of the horror. The vision widens to show the old man standing before the enormous red-eyed abomination, confronted by a terrifying revelation. A battered man lies in terror, realizing too late that he is about to be overwhelmed. He is violently smashed down before he can escape. When he looks up, he finds himself cornered by the black-clad youth and an older knife-wielding man. As the pressure closes in, he understands that the earlier attack was meant to drive him out into the open. The trap finally makes sense to him, and his panic turns into a frantic revelation. He connects the warning about protecting the baby to the black-clad youth standing before him. The youth is thrown off by that implication, not understanding why he is being linked to a baby. The desperate man identifies him as the egg of calamity. The accusation stuns the youth, who has never heard that title before. The man raves that the youth is the source of everything and that even abandoning a peaceful life will not save him from the organization hunting him. Before he can say more, a shot tears into the ground and cuts him off. Both fighters are caught off guard by the sudden intervention. A new voice warns that when an enemy cannot simply be killed, they eventually become their own enemy. An armored military vehicle emerges through the smoke, announcing a far more dangerous authority. Inside that arrival is a silver-haired figure wearing a gas mask. He steps out with calm, deliberate confidence. The newcomer reveals himself as Lion, captain of Snowwolf, and bluntly frames the situation as one where the youth could become his own enemy. The child immediately recognizes the military presence as bad news. The older man reacts at once, striking the ground as if preparing to confront or intercept the newcomer. He recognizes Lion and addresses him with wary familiarity. Lion removes his mask, showing he has no need to hide himself here. He pointedly reminds the older man that he had already warned him this would happen. At the same time, a gray creature creeps up behind Lion, trying to exploit his apparent distraction. The monster lunges at him from above. Lion releases a crushing force that obliterates the threat instantly. He smiles afterward, making it clear the attack never posed any danger to him. Watching from cover, the black-clad youth retreats further and hides himself. He is shaken by the fact that Lion killed the monster without any visible movement. The older man demands to know why Lion is here, and Lion answers that he came because the man insisted on returning home to find his grandchild. The older man tries to protest, invoking his role as teacher even as Lion cuts in. Lion reaches into his pocket, asking him to come back instead of forcing the issue. He pulls out a phone to prove he has leverage. On the screen he shows that the grandchild is safe under military protection, while insisting the military needs a mentor to command them. The older man falls silent, forced to weigh family against duty. From hiding, the youth pieces together that the military wants the teacher back in command. That realization is interrupted when he senses another alarming presence. He recognizes the arriving authority as the old man who sits at the top of the military. Lion presses the advantage by offering immediate confirmation of the grandchild's safety. The older man gives in for the moment and agrees to go along. With the matter settled, Lion and the teacher turn to leave together. Left behind, the black-clad youth crouches in uncertainty, unsure what he should do next. A sudden disturbance makes him tense up immediately. He realizes too late that something has gone wrong and curses under his breath. Lion notices the movement and turns back with mild curiosity. Nearby debris is blasted apart by a fast incoming strike. The hidden child is startled as the danger closes in. A boot lands beside him, revealing that someone has reached his position. Lion finds the child on the ground, levels his weapon, and casually notes that he has found a kid where he expected a monster. With a cool smile, he suggests he saw a monster in this area earlier and begins testing the child's reaction. He tightens his finger on the trigger and directly asks whether the child was that monster. The boy freezes when a gun is suddenly aimed at him, realizing he might be killed before anyone even checks who he is. He desperately stops Lion from firing and buys himself a moment. The older man reveals that the child was placed there deliberately as bait. Lion accepts that explanation and lowers his immediate suspicion. With the danger eased, the older man gathers the crying child while Lion watches with amused approval. As he holds the boy close, the older man quietly warns him to keep pretending to be an ordinary child until the very end. Lion jokes about how well the old teacher and the child seem to get along, while the boy keeps up his act by bawling. Lion invites the older man to come with them, trying to fold him into their side. Cradled in the teacher's arms, the boy senses something deeply off about Lion and starts to study him more carefully. The closer look at Lion's face stirs a dangerous memory. He realizes he may have seen those distinctive eyes before among the organization's people. Soon after, he is laid into a bed in a sterile facility, and left there like one of many confined children. Lion dismisses the attending nurse once the boy is settled in. Pretending to sleep, the boy first wonders where the old man went. Then he notices the room is filled with rows of children in identical beds and understands he has been brought somewhere far more sinister. Another child wakes and cries, drawing Lion's attention. The crying escalates, threatening to disturb the whole room. Lion smiles at the child's energy instead of showing any kindness. He lightly warns the child not to wake the others, as if speaking to livestock rather than people. Then he uses a purple, mind-affecting power to force the child back into sleep. The child immediately goes limp under the effect. Watching from his bed, the boy confirms that Lion is exactly who he feared. He identifies Lion as Tank, a major figure in the organization with the ability to manipulate blood. He remembers that Tank can make blood inside a body detonate into an attack. Seeing the sleeping child's condition, he realizes this is not natural sleep at all but unconsciousness from oxygen deprivation. That confirms Tank had truly tried to kill him earlier, making him an enemy far too dangerous to ignore. Lion notices something odd, as if he senses the boy's awareness. The boy keeps his eyes shut and stays perfectly still to avoid detection. Lion studies him and concludes that the boy's power awakened unusually early, even though the Crimson Lotus event has barely begun. Satisfied for now, Lion remarks that it is almost time for the inspection. Before leaving, he warns the boy to stay quiet and tries to force him back under his power as well. The boy successfully feigns sleep again, avoiding immediate exposure. Lion leaves entertained, already looking forward to what will happen next. Once he is gone, the boy opens one eye and drops the act. He clenches his fist and prepares to move. He decides it is time to act instead of lying helplessly in bed. He reviews the abilities he absorbed earlier and reminds himself that his mental defenses should protect him from mind-based attacks. He also recalls how he tricked blood-based absorption by using fake blood when his circulation slowed. More urgently, he focuses on the larger mystery around him. Looking over the room full of children, he wonders if they are all the so-called calamity eggs. That term triggers a memory from his previous life. He remembers seeing the name before but never being important enough back then to learn what it meant. Now he suspects Lion and the organization know the truth, and he connects them to the military's destruction in the ruined future he remembers. He also realizes the old teacher was searching only for his grandson because he never truly trusted Lion. The coming inspection sounds even worse the more he thinks about it, and he concludes the situation is dire. He notices a red-haired woman and even a dog among those connected to this place, but pushes the thought aside. He decides he cannot afford to worry about anyone else yet. His first priority becomes finding a way out. He reaches out to test what he can do in his current body. He tries to call out and assert himself, but the effort is pitiful in a baby's body. The room's scale and his own tiny form make his helplessness painfully clear. He admits the obvious problem: brute force is not an option. He reviews his fused crystal core and the remaining powers it left him, especially Dark Shadow. Because fusion erased most abilities, he now has only Dark Shadow and God Barrier available. God Barrier can resist mental interference, but Dark Shadow is too destructive to use carelessly in a room full of children. Until he understands the organization's intentions, he cannot risk exposing himself recklessly. He scans the room again, searching for a safer answer. The bitter truth settles in that, for now, he is trapped in the body of a powerless-looking baby. Then something unexpected catches his attention. A nearby bed stirs, and he notices another child beginning to awaken. The child turns out to be a girl with living vine-like hair, and he immediately recognizes her as another compatible one. The discovery shocks him because he had believed he was the only such child here. He struggles to accept that there may be more than one. As more beds react, he realizes this is not an isolated case. The possibility dawns on him that many of these children may be compatible ones. That overturns what he knew from his past life, where such children were hidden away rather than gathered together like this. Before he can think further, the vine-haired girl's power lashes out and catches him. He is yanked violently through the air before he can resist. Entangled and suspended, he realizes he cannot break free by strength alone and hesitates to use his own power in this room. He struggles anyway, but the vines hold firm. Someone rushes in from outside the rows of beds. A hooded girl seizes the vines with practiced force, revealing herself as another awakened child. The boy drops to the floor as the grip on him is broken. The newcomer scolds him for waking up and making trouble when he should have stayed asleep. She establishes dominance immediately, calling him a clueless rookie. He stares at her, trying to understand who she is and why she intervened. She quickly sizes him up as a very young child who is already controlling an ability. That realization unsettles her because it means the process has started earlier than expected. Then she senses movement outside and turns toward the door. The boy realizes she is slipping away just as the inspection arrives. An alarm-like signal confirms the inspection has begun. Footsteps rush in, leaving no time to escape. The staff are ordered to collect every child at once. Caught on the floor, the boy instantly pretends to be asleep again to avoid suspicion. A nurse picks him up without noticing the act. As the children are gathered, fear spreads among the staff and the boy wonders what they are being forced into. They are taken down into a dark chamber beneath a single opening above, like offerings lowered into a pit. Still in someone's arms, he keeps one eye open and watches carefully. In the darkness, he senses the organization's presence all around and fears the children may be made to kill each other. Once set down, he braces himself on the floor and prepares for the worst. He sees several children scattered through the chamber, all isolated under the same oppressive darkness. Lion appears above them, smiling down as a child's scream echoes through the room. The boy forces himself not to panic even as the terror begins. A chained blue monster drops into the chamber and bears down on the children. At last he understands why there were no children in his past life's version of events. They had been used as prey. The monster's restraints loosen just enough to let it hunt. The boy notices the chains and realizes the creature is only partially controlled. Even restrained, the monster remains lethally dangerous. He concludes the restraints are probably temporary and meant only to stage the slaughter. Some of the older children stare up in horror, while the hooded girl remains grimly focused. A baby nearby starts screaming as the monster closes in. The hooded girl snatches that child up and runs, trying to save at least one life. She sets the baby down behind her, placing herself between it and the threat. Looking upward, she silently marks Lion as the one responsible. The boy studies the room full of terrified children and pieces the pattern together. He realizes the organization is making babies fight monsters to force their abilities to awaken. This is the organization's hunting dog plan brought to life. He directly accuses Lion of orchestrating this cruelty after fooling the old teacher. Lion, pleased rather than offended, tells him not to disappoint him. Then Lion starts the real test by pressing a control button. The remaining restraints release with a crash. Freed, the monster lunges straight at the boy. He steels himself as the attack comes faster than he can avoid. The monster slams down beside him with overwhelming force. The shockwave throws him skidding across the floor. Bloodied and furious, he realizes the situation has already become deadly. He knows he could defeat a second-grade monster under normal conditions, but not while trapped in this body and surrounded by other children. As he looks back, he sees the others huddled together and understands they will die if he does nothing. The children can only tremble in silence. Their fear breaks into screams as the monster turns toward them. The boy sees the creature choose easier prey and knows he has no time left. The monster changes targets and charges the cluster of children. They freeze, unable to flee. The vine-haired girl awakens fully and erupts in panic, sending a forest of thorn vines upward. Her attack lashes across the chamber and intercepts the monster's path. The vines bind around the creature and drag against its body, briefly restraining it. The boy immediately encourages her, recognizing a chance to survive. From above, Lion calmly identifies her power as a vine ability and judges it promising for a first awakening. He then points out that the boy still has not revealed his own power, implying he expects even more. Lion explains that latent potential only erupts under extreme conditions, making the children's suffering part of the experiment. The monster's eye sharpens as it begins to break free. A new surge of force tears through the vines. The creature enters a more violent state and starts ripping the restraint apart. The boy realizes the vine girl cannot hold it much longer. He judges her power too weak to stop a monster that has nearly reached the next rank through frenzy. With no other option, he decides to intervene personally. He grabs a thorn vine despite the spikes cutting into his hand. Using the vines as a path and shield, he launches himself upward toward the monster. He closes the distance and thrusts his hand toward the creature's face. At the last moment, he activates Divine Barrier. The barrier's force disturbs the monster's mind and movement, disrupting its berserk state. He realizes Divine Barrier can cancel the influence driving the monster mad, and aims for the weak point hidden within the tangled vines. He commits to the strike and drives the attack home. The monster convulses as the corrupting influence is expelled from its head. Its body falters and loses control. As it stumbles, even the monster seems confused by the foreign substance and force that just hit it. Wrapped in the remaining vines, the boy sees that his gamble has worked for the moment. He assumes the interruption has gone unnoticed and starts to relax too soon. But the monster is suddenly hurled again, proving the danger is not over. In the next instant, the recovering creature surges back behind him, and he is left exposed in front of a threat that still has not finished hunting. A small child drops helplessly into a deep underground shaft. As he panics in midair, something coils around his arm and stops his fall. He realizes a mechanical limb has caught him and is holding him above the abyss. The machine swings into view, revealing itself as a spider-like robot descending toward him. Hanging from its tail-like arm, he starts to recognize what has saved him. Looking up, he identifies it as Hot's robot rather than a random machine. The robot activates its core and prepares to move him to safety. It sets the child down on a narrow ledge inside the cavern. He corrects himself and remembers this is specifically a security robot tied to the hunting dog project. Elsewhere, the child's situation is being observed through a projected image. A subordinate reports that the safety system has activated and asks whether they should proceed with the hunting dog project. The mention of Hot being brought back is tied to a restrained subject whose condition suggests the project's cruelty. The white-haired commander decides reviving Hot was the right move because it completes his plan. On the monitor, the child laughs innocently, unaware of the danger around him. The commander dismisses the child's behavior as childish playfulness. His subordinate hesitates, arguing that saving an ordinary child should not be considered strange. The child's thoughts turn bitter as he concludes that living as the organization's dog is no life at all. He questions how much longer he is supposed to remain obedient to the organization. A sudden idea occurs to him as he looks over the ledge. He rejects the path of submission. With grim resolve, he decides death would be preferable to becoming that thing. The security robot closes in, still trying to manage the situation. The child throws himself off the ledge, choosing to fall over capture. He plummets downward while the robot lunges after him. A hidden monster bursts out and slams into the pursuing robot. The collision tears through the shaft wall and sends debris flying as the child keeps falling. Unconscious or dazed, he continues to drop deeper into the pit. Back in the control room, a report comes in that the security robot malfunctioned and one specimen has fallen. The subordinate asks whether they should attempt to rescue. The commander coldly refuses, deciding the fall is too deep and the specimen is not worth saving. He adds that Hot's robot is too weak to defeat even a 5th-rank monster. To avoid provoking the far more dangerous creature in the processing plant, he orders everyone to leave the fallen subject alone. He admits that even he would struggle against that monster. The order stands, no unnecessary action, and the subordinate obeys. Far below, someone lands in the depths with deliberate control. A surge of blue energy crashes into the ground at the bottom of the shaft. Power swirls violently as the newcomer stabilizes after the descent. A black-clad man with glowing eyes emerges from the impact, fully charged with energy. He takes in his surroundings and immediately questions where he has ended up. The cavern around him looks less like a facility and more like a dumping ground. He scans the area, alert for a way out. Spotting a barred doorway, he wonders if it could be an exit. But his expression hardens as he senses it will not be that easy. Monsters begin crawling out from the rubble and surround him, confirming the trap. He pauses, more curious than frightened by the creatures closing in. Seeing their bodies literally falling apart, he judges them to be suffering beyond recovery. He decides the merciful answer is to put them down immediately. The monsters charge at him in a frenzy. He moves first and crushes one attacker with a single brutal strike. Without slowing, he follows through with another devastating blow, tearing through the next monster. Surrounded by a swarm of monsters, the black-clad fighter stands calm and ready instead of being overwhelmed. He erupts into motion and cuts through the attackers around him in a single burst. Without slowing down, he tears across the battlefield and drives straight through the remaining creatures. One monster is silenced mid-cry as his strike lands cleanly. His blade continues through flesh with ruthless precision. Another body is severed before it can resist. When the rush ends, a heap of corpses lies behind him, proving the fight was effortless. He treats the massacre as trivial and enjoys how easy it was. The battle stirs an old thrill in him, as if he is rediscovering his taste for combat. As the monsters die, red crystal-like energy begins gathering from their remains. That energy condenses around his dark weapon, which starts absorbing the harvest. He notes that a substantial amount of energy has been collected. Even if the absorption is not immediate, he decides the delay will not matter. Judging by their strength, he concludes the monsters he just killed were only low to mid-level threats. His attention shifts from harvesting power to finding a way out of the ruined area. Before moving on, he senses something and pauses. Looking across the rubble-filled slope, he realizes one enemy still remains. The survivor reveals itself as a red-masked swordsman radiating dangerous energy. He mocks the newcomer as the supposed ruler of this place, unimpressed by its presence. The swordsman answers by multiplying itself, turning one foe into several armed figures. He immediately recognizes the rarity of a soldier-type monster with a splitting ability. Rather than worry, he becomes excited by the chance to claim such a useful power. He lunges forward, intent on taking that ability for himself. His charge is so fast it becomes a blur. The split soldiers rush to intercept him from multiple angles. He slips between them at high speed, but something about the exchange feels off. He pulls up in confusion, realizing the situation is not unfolding as expected. The soldiers sweep past and reposition around him instead of being cleanly taken down. A fallen body nearby stirs, hinting that the battlefield is still active with hidden threats. From a distance, he sees several red-masked swordsmen standing among other monsters, confirming this is a guarded zone rather than a lone encounter. Still casual, he tries to draw them into acknowledging him. When they continue to ignore him, he remarks on their hostility while testing their reaction. He moves right up to one of them, but it remains eerily passive. That strange restraint makes him realize they are not attacking because their role is fixed. He studies them further and starts piecing together their purpose. The nearby exit sign and their unmoving watch confirm his conclusion that these monsters are stationed to guard the way out. Once he understands the rule governing them, he decides to exploit it. He bursts into motion again, attempting to break through the guarded line by speed alone. He is confident for an instant, trusting his acceleration to carry him past them. The guards react at once, unleashing coordinated red slashes that close in on him from several directions. One swordsman nearly catches him with a sweeping strike as he twists away. The close call shocks him, and he realizes their response speed is far beyond what he expected. He springs upward to evade, acknowledging that this opponent is genuinely fast. He lands hard and skids back, forced onto the defensive by the pressure of their attacks. Before he can fully recover, another guard appears on top of him with a follow-up strike. Now rattled, he understands he may have badly underestimated this enemy. The swordsman presses him relentlessly, keeping him from regaining control. He finally creates distance with a wide counter, but the guards remain standing and ready. Breathing through the exchange, he admits their speed is exceptional and that his first assessment was wrong. Instead of retreating, he grows more interested, deciding this tougher fight may be worth enjoying. Seeing that only one enemy arm was damaged, the masked clones close in, realizing their target is still fully dangerous. They launch a coordinated rush from multiple directions, trying to overwhelm him before he can recover momentum. He slips through their converging attack with fluid speed, cutting across their formation instead of meeting it head-on. His movement turns into a sweeping counter, carrying him past their blades in one continuous arc. Even with one arm impaired, he drives forward without hesitation, using sheer speed to keep the initiative. He tears through one clone at close range, carving deep into its body and breaking their assault pattern. The successful hit leaves him grimly satisfied, as if he has settled part of the score. He immediately follows by seizing another opening at point-blank range. Spinning through the gap, he keeps pressure on the second clone before it can reset. As he circles behind one of them, he makes it clear he intends to repay the injury he suffered. He reaches out to control the exchange and force the enemy off balance. The clash drives a clone violently into the ground, blasting apart the rocky floor. His hand remains planted amid the debris, showing he forced the impact through completely. One clone lies buried in the rubble, badly damaged by the slam, but the remaining two recover quickly and reform their line, refusing to let him isolate them. From across the crater, they face him together again, restoring the standoff. He raises his injured arm and declares the debt repaid, noting that the arm itself will eventually return to normal. The clones silently reassess him, recognizing that he is still far from beaten. Without wasting time, they launch another attack through the drifting debris. A storm of red-edged strikes crashes down on him from several angles at once. He endures the barrage with clenched teeth as the pressure suddenly intensifies. The assault keeps cutting into him, forcing him to absorb more damage than before. He realizes their power has increased beyond the earlier exchange. From that, he deduces the clones are sharing power, meaning fewer surviving bodies make each remaining one stronger. Annoyed but focused, he accepts that this enemy becomes more troublesome the longer the fight drags on. One clone tries to capitalize on that advantage with a direct diving strike. He bursts away in a spiraling surge, escaping the hit and creating space to change tactics. Deciding he cannot allow the clones to merge or consolidate further, he resolves to strike both bodies at the same time. He plants his foot and channels power into the ground, preparing a wider area technique. Dark energy coils around him in a rising vortex as he abandons simple close combat. While unleashing the technique, he reflects that the dark shadow he obtained still has room to be developed further. A small spectral companion appears beside him as he recalls how accustomed he has been to fighting in this form. He finally understands there was never any need to stay bound to a human shape. Even as the two clones attack from above and below, he remains still and lets the transformation overtake the battlefield. He calmly surrenders his body to the shifting shadow instead of defending in ordinary ways. His human outline begins to dissolve into layered darkness. The swirling mass expands, confirming his decision to fight as something less human and more suited to this power. His shadowy companion eagerly promises to finish the enemies at once. The dark vortex spreads around the clones, swallowing the space they were using to maneuver. From the storm emerges a monstrous shadow form filled with snapping mouths, turning his power into a predator that surrounds them. The clones brace inside the encroaching darkness, suddenly forced onto the defensive. The shadow lashes through them, cutting one down before the other can respond. When the attack settles, he stands over the aftermath while at least one clone has already fallen. Looking at the corpse, he wonders whether dead clones automatically return to the original body. That question shifts into suspicion when he notices the fallen clone carries an identification tag. The tag reveals the name Lieutenant Barton, linking the dead man to the Snow Wolf Squad. Alarmed, he realizes these enemies may actually be members of that squad rather than disposable constructs. He extends a sharp shadow appendage to inspect the body more closely. As he probes the corpse, a red, blood-like energy begins to rise from it in response. That unexpected reaction catches him off guard and makes him pause. The masked man secures a glowing red crystal from the creature he has just killed. As he studies his transformed state, he realizes something is seriously wrong. The crystal confirms the monster was already 5th class, far stronger than it should have been. He is relieved he destroyed it before it could merge and become even more dangerous. That only deepens his alarm, because a 5th class monster should not exist at this stage. He concludes the apocalypse may have already started ahead of schedule. Remembering that red dust will erupt in 2 days, he urgently decides he must find the woman quickly before she is caught in it. He turns to leave the ruined underground area, carrying what he needs with him. He heads for the exit through the rubble-strewn passage. Just before leaving, he senses someone approaching from the other side. He tries to stop the newcomer from entering, but he is too late. A young woman bursts through the exit into the cavern. The guards behind her aim their guns and threaten to shoot if she resists. She halts the confrontation with surprising calm, making the armed men hesitate. Instead of surrendering properly, she casually asks for time to take off her clothes because she feels too hot. She starts stripping without embarrassment, treating the danger around her like a minor inconvenience. As she cools herself off, she finally takes in her surroundings. Confusion replaces her nonchalance when she realizes this is not where she expected to be. Seeing the wreckage, she angrily complains that her room has been turned into a dump and demands it be restored. The guards try to force her along, but she ignores their authority. She sizes them up and immediately realizes they are outsiders. With open hostility, she informs them they have wandered into territory they do not understand. She declares the place belongs to her family and asserts control over it. Before anyone can respond, something above begins to crack open. The guards are distracted by the sudden noise overhead. Their fear spikes as the ceiling gives way. The masked man and another figure drop down violently from above into the chamber. The collapse is followed by a scream, throwing the scene into chaos. The young woman coldly decides the intruders deserve what is coming. She rises into the air on a hooked tail-like appendage, revealing she commands something inhuman. Annoyed by the damage, she treats the whole situation like someone has dirted her home. She orders her creatures to clean up, unleashing spider-like machines across the cavern. At the same time, humanoid monsters emerge from the rubble to join the attack. The machines open fire, flooding the area with projectiles. The barrage tears through the monsters as the battle erupts on all sides. One of the spider machines locks onto the masked man as a target. A targeting reticle fixes on him from across the cavern. He notices the incoming shot at the last instant. He catches the spear-like projectile with one hand, stopping it cold. That effortless defense sharpens his focus on the true threat. The young woman dives straight at him, launching herself into close combat. He counters by driving down hard, smashing the ground and disrupting her attack path. She grins through the debris, clearly enjoying the fight instead of fearing him. A fresh burst of force flashes between them as the clash continues. She whips around him in midair, pressing the assault from another angle. Her kick lands cleanly, proving she can strike him head-on. Furious, she accuses him of being the one who wrecked her castle. Rather than deny it, he is impressed that she is much stronger than he expected. She dismisses his praise and insists she has barely started. His eye narrows as he recognizes the seriousness of the opponent now standing before him. A young woman unleashes a violent surge of power into the ground. The blast tears through the area with enough force to rupture the earth in a widening shockwave. Hidden mechanical creatures are caught in the destruction as the attack punches through their position. When the dust settles, she stands over the ruined site and checks the aftermath. She studies the smoke-filled wreckage, alert for anything still active. Among the debris, one damaged machine remains intact enough to respond. Its cracked body suddenly fires a blue beam from inside the rubble. The unexpected counterattack catches her off guard. The shot slices through the smoke toward her at high speed. She stops the machine at close range and realizes it is still dangerous despite being broken. With a sharp strike, she knocks the spider-like robot down before it can recover. Even so, she is unsettled by how strong the enemy presence here has become. A man with glowing eyes emerges from the smoke, admitting he was wrong to let the supermarket supplies go because this situation is far more serious. She immediately recognizes him as K, and he confirms it without hesitation. Before she can react further, he vanishes from where he stood. He closes the distance instantly, moving so fast she can barely follow him. His speed shocks her before she can defend herself. Kay slips behind her, restrains her with ease, and teasingly remarks on having caught her. Flustered and sweating under the pressure, she protests weakly instead of breaking free. He releases her just as casually, making it clear he could control the encounter whenever he wanted. She jumps back to create distance, treating him as a far more dangerous opponent than the machines. Now openly alarmed, she demands to know who he is and recognizes him as a serious threat. Kay ignores the hostility and asks whether this ruined place is her base, and she confirms that it is. He presses for answers, saying he wants to know what happened here and whether there is any way to investigate it. Looking over the scene, he notes that a hacker base being cleaned up this thoroughly is suspicious. She grows irritated that he is still hanging around instead of leaving. As she moves through the wreckage, more damaged search machines crawl around the cave-like base. Angry at the destruction, she complains that the mess is so bad she cannot even reach the lab properly. Kay follows overhead with calm confidence, using his tail-like ability to move while watching her work. He reflects that after leveling up, his ability has changed. Instead of directly absorbing skills, his tail now seems able to sustain his power for far longer than before. He concludes that it is absorbing energy and extending his activation time, which he considers a useful improvement. Keeping that advantage to himself, he quietly decides not to reveal the details of his abilities yet. Meanwhile, the woman finishes opening a way forward and announces that it is done. A vertical blue cut of energy opens through the rock like a doorway. She leads Kei through the newly opened passage deeper into the hidden base. Inside, they find a buried lab packed with computers and monitors that somehow survived the destruction. As she steps in, she frames what follows as the result of everything that has happened over the past year. She rushes to a terminal, determined to show Kei who destroyed the place. She starts the system and forces the machine to respond. The computer begins searching through stored data. The recovered footage reveals a white-haired man waiting near an exit inside the base. Someone then enters from the doorway, drawing his attention. The newcomer is a composed white-haired woman dressed like a high-ranking operative. She addresses the man as Lai and coolly suggests he has walked into an inconvenient trap. He answers with a polite smile, calls her Anya, and makes clear he has no interest in wasting time on conversation. Anya remains relaxed and amused, noting his impatience instead of being provoked by it. In response, she produces a golden blade, signaling that she is ready to settle the matter by force. Lai reacts in surprise and immediately raises his weapon. Before he can gain control of the fight, Anya bursts forward and strikes, launching him back with overwhelming speed. A young soldier tries to draw his handgun, but the magazine is knocked free before he can fire. Realizing how dangerous his opponent is, he curses the woman for overwhelming him so easily. She dives in with brutal speed and slashes his hand, stopping his counterattack at close range. Even after landing the hit, she stays composed while he reels in frustration. A needle-like weapon remains lodged through his wounded hand, making the injury far worse than a simple cut. He jumps back and creates distance, trying to recover before she can finish him. The woman hovers calmly above him, making it clear she still controls the fight. He clutches the bleeding hand in tense silence, realizing the wound is not normal. She explains that he is already in serious danger from even that small injury. Without special treatment, she warns, the bleeding will continue until it kills him. She mocks how fatal that kind of condition is for a soldier who needs to keep fighting. While trying to endure the pain, he demands to know why she attacked a military soldier inside a base. He presses further, asking what she is really trying to accomplish. Unbothered, she tells him not to be so tense and claims she only came to sell the organization a product. To prove it, she produces a vial of what she calls a useful special medicine. That claim catches him off guard. As he repeats the phrase special medicine, he starts reassessing the situation. Before he can think it through, she suddenly closes the gap and seizes his attention at point-blank range. Her eye activates a strange hypnotic pattern that locks onto him. His expression goes blank as the influence takes hold. He stares in confusion, unable to understand what is happening to him. In that altered state, a violent vision erupts before him. A monstrous beast tears into a soldier in a burst of blood. He lunges as if reacting to the threat, moving on instinct rather than reason. The next image in his mind turns him into the target, with dark tendrils and surrounding soldiers making him feel trapped and condemned. Driven into fury and desperation, he grits his teeth and resists the mental assault. More accusing figures loom over him, reinforcing the sense that he is being cornered by hostile forces. A stern military man appears in the vision as another source of pressure and judgment. Shaken, he struggles to make sense of the sudden flood of images. Back in front of the woman, he kneels wounded and demands to know what she wants from him. She answers with a smile that he is meant to receive her gift. The power behind her words manifests like a tarot omen, identifying her influence with the chariot. He studies the syringe-like medicine in his hand and begins to understand her game. Laughing bitterly, he concludes that this was her plan all along. Elsewhere, a black-haired observer watching remotely recognizes the woman as important and orders her identity checked immediately. A green-haired operator hurriedly works at the console to comply. The observer realizes the woman belongs to the upper ranks of the organization. He interprets her eye as one of the 10 wheels of destiny, placing her high within a larger occult hierarchy. The woman is identified as the one tied to that destiny pattern. The observer confirms that she is the culprit behind the current incident. The operator, still tense, tries to keep up with the sudden revelation. The observer admits he has never seen this woman before and questions who she really is. The operator reminds him that Lai was supposed to be a military traitor and implies she thought he was about to act on that suspicion. He leans in with a dangerous smile, clearly enjoying the turn in the mystery. Nervous, the operator discreetly reaches under her chair while keeping the conversation going. She secretly triggers a hidden device and urges the system to continue. Meanwhile, the white-haired woman tempts the wounded soldier by saying she has noticed fate's unfairness toward him and can prepare a stage for his revenge. She sweetens the offer by asking whether this place would suit his vengeance. He accepts the proposal with grim anticipation, eager for what comes next. A shrouded object appears within a misty, prepared space, suggesting the beginning of some arranged experiment or ritual. A man named Lai arrives before it, and another figure questions whether he is using this setup for experiments as well. A soldier lightly warns Lion that if their master learns he is acting recklessly, punishment is inevitable. Lion admits the warning is fair, but he is clearly not discouraged. He decides to gamble anyway, convinced that success will hide his scheme completely. Before that confidence can settle, the caged red core above them suddenly erupts with violent movement. The nearby personnel are caught off guard as the situation instantly turns catastrophic. The red core releases a storm of dust and tendrils that spreads through the chamber and threatens everyone present. The soldiers can only shield themselves as the red dust lashes through the room. One of them realizes too late that the outbreak is already affecting their bodies. The corruption reaches his eye, signaling the mutation has begun. The first victims lose control as grotesque growths burst from them under the red dust's influence. The mutation spreads fast, turning armed men into attacking monsters in moments. Even while in agony, Lion forces himself to stay conscious and act. Bleeding and half-transformed, he urgently calls out to Lion to stop whatever he is planning. Lion remains calm, more curious than alarmed by the transformation. He judges the man to be some kind of special case, but still far from complete. Lion reveals his real intention. He wants this man to survive long enough to become a rare adapter through future exposure to red dust. As he walks away, he accuses the man of once being his orphanage comrade and battlefield companion who murdered him without mercy. He presses the accusation further, saying he had been denied even the slightest chance to live. Then he declares this is repayment, and that the other man will now be forced to undergo mutation himself. The newly transformed creatures immediately descend toward Lion as if carrying out that sentence. Lion effortlessly blocks them with a strange black-blue power, showing he is in no danger. He dismisses the monsters with disgust, calling their blood filthy. A voice from elsewhere tries to question Lion, but screams from the chamber cut through the exchange. Outside the main fight, trapped researchers beg for the attack to stop as blue slime-like creatures engulf them. Their pleas continue while Lion watches the containment fail around them. The injured red-masked man notices the blue creatures and realizes the threat is spreading beyond the room. He curses the worsening disaster as the chamber fills with escaped organisms. Despite his condition, he warns Lion that those creatures must not be allowed outside. Lion unexpectedly agrees, pointing out that innocent people beyond the base would be at risk. He begins physically gathering the blue creatures instead of letting them roam free. Using his power, he herds the escaping blobs back toward the chamber interior. Once he has them contained, he closes the door and remarks that the real entertainment is only beginning. The red-masked man steels himself, deciding that no monster-fied subject can be allowed to escape because the damage would become irreversible. That resolve is tied to the people he wants to protect outside, including his master, Hot, and the others he cares about. He swears to hold the line alone and keep every monster inside. Acting on that vow, he launches himself upward toward the exit and the spreading creatures. His body hardens into a more complete armored form as he commits to the fight. At the exit, another operative arrives and steps into the aftermath. The newcomer immediately senses something is wrong. He finds Barton standing atop the slain monsters, making clear the battle has already turned into a massacre. Shocked, the newcomer demands to know what happened. He quickly realizes the answer may be worse than he expected. Looking over the bodies of fallen soldiers, he suspects Barton is responsible for the slaughter. One survivor stirs weakly among the blood, proving at least one witness remains. The newcomer tries to retreat and call for help before he becomes the next victim. He runs, but Barton moves before he can escape. Barton strikes him from behind with a brutal thrust through the torso. The man collapses in disbelief as Barton finishes him without hesitation. Barton follows through with another decisive blow, making sure the witness cannot survive. The body falls, leaving Barton alone over another corpse. Even as he dies, the victim begs Lion not to leave, as if still clinging to a duty or memory tied to him. The dying man cannot understand why Lion has become this ruthless. Barton steps past him, unmoved by the plea. The wounded man is left bleeding out on the floor as Barton departs. Elsewhere, Hot grows frustrated because the damaged camera feed prevents her from learning what is happening in the chamber. A masked black-clad figure studying the situation concludes that Hot knows almost nothing about the woman involved. He further judges that Hot is still ignorant of the organization's deeper structure. For him, the real priority is the monster that produces red dust, the same being that killed him in his previous life. He reasons that if the organization is containing that creature, then it may also be tied to the great catastrophe itself. That possibility gives the Snow Wolf Squad a legitimate reason to destroy the organization. The thought briefly gives way to a lighter pause as he stands beside Hot while she remains oblivious to his full seriousness. His attention shifts to a more immediate problem. In his current infant body, he has not eaten since arriving. He realizes that being trapped in a baby's body severely limits how much he can consume, and weakens him. Hot notices him and turns toward the strange child. The masked man suddenly appears behind her and teasingly asks whether her work is finished. Hot nervously admits the camera is broken, leaving her unable to gather more information. Before she can react further, his black tendrils coil around her and seize control of the room. He looms over her and pauses as a new thought occurs to him. Deciding she is no longer useful now that the feed is dead, he prepares to eliminate her. Hot forces an awkward smile, sensing the danger but unable to talk her way out of it. A sudden impact interrupts the execution attempt. The masked man turns, immediately recognizing that someone powerful has entered. A stern command orders him to stop. Hot is knocked clear of the danger zone as the newcomer intervenes. The masked man blocks a crushing kick aimed at him. The attacker presses in, driving him back through the equipment-filled room. The masked man begins to identify his opponent in surprise. The older man demands to know why he is here, revealing personal familiarity rather than simple hostility. Hot, confused, asks her grandfather whether he knows this intruder. The masked man is thrown off by that word and repeats it in disbelief. An uneasy silence follows as all three process the unexpected connection. The grandfather explains that Lion had imprisoned Hot and conducted bizarre experiments on her. Realizing they share the same enemy, the masked man asks whether that makes them allies and whether the old man has a plan. Hot abruptly derails the tension by insisting that food comes before strategy. She introduces herself more fully as Hot, the biological granddaughter of Yang Taixing. The old man identifies himself as Chinshi, now known as Yang Taixing, the Snow Wolf Squad base's second-in-command, and tells everyone to eat first. The masked man is introduced as K, an SSS-class adapter currently stuck in a baby's body, and Yang offers him the only suitable food available. That food turns out to be a carton of milk, emphasizing how absurd K's situation has become. Hot bursts out laughing at the mighty adapter's helpless diet, while K silently resents the humiliation. K wonders whether Hot still does not understand who he really is and asks if they should tell her. Yang decides honesty is necessary if they are going to cooperate. Hot casually drinks while the others prepare to reveal something serious. Still clueless, she asks what exactly they are talking about. K accepts that there is no avoiding the explanation. He uses his power to draw out a dark cocoon-like mass and begin changing forms. The transformation reveals that the intimidating masked figure and the baby are the same person. Hot is so startled by the reveal that she spits out her drink in his face. From off to the side, someone demands an explanation for this absurd turn. Hot wipes her mouth and stares at the baby in disbelief, trying to process what she just saw. She finally voices the obvious conclusion that K really is a child right now. K dryly confirms that his current body is only about a year old. When Hot casually reaches toward him, K sharply objects to being treated like an ordinary baby. Hot ignores his dignity and swats away his tendril, refusing to indulge his attitude. She complains to her grandfather that both K and Lion keep bullying her, while Yang pointedly refuses to get dragged into it. Privately, K regrets that revealing his identity has only made the others look down on him. He reflects bitterly that even with SSS class abilities, a body not yet 1 year old cannot fully use that power. Because of that weakness, he decides his reincarnation must remain secret from everyone else no matter how much they investigate him. He resolves to save that truth as his final trump card until he uncovers both the world-ending mystery and the organization's secret. Returning to the present, K asks Yang whether he has a next move. Yang steps forward and begins outlining the situation inside the base. He explains that multiple units are stationed here and that the Snow Wolf Squad is among the strongest. However, Lion has already eliminated their officers, leaving the base badly compromised. Worse, Lion has the organization's backing and the captured children are scattered throughout the facility. Yang concludes that a direct assault would be difficult, so rescuing the children must come first, but they lack someone who can move covertly. He and K size each other up as the unspoken answer becomes obvious. After a tense pause, both recognize that K is the collaborator Yang needs. Yang adds that if the Snow Wolf Squad notices anything suspicious here, their entire operation will be exposed, so Hot must fake the surveillance feed. Hot answers with sudden confidence instead of her usual flippancy. She assures him that manipulating the system is well within her abilities. To prove it, she dives into the equipment and starts working at full speed. Outside, the organization's spider-like surveillance machines continue sweeping the corridors with red searchlights. The patrol tightens, showing the base is still actively hunting for intruders and escaped subjects. The ruined chamber grows quiet for a moment, as if the next disaster is gathering just out of sight. Hot calls back that if she has to run the deception from outside the room, her price will be enormous. Yang cuts off the bargaining by grabbing her before she can turn the crisis into a business deal. He decides they cannot remain in this room any longer and starts evacuating the team. Without ceremony, he carries Hot out despite her protests. Hot lands outside in a flustered heap once he sets her down. Yang tells her that the children's rescue can be entrusted to K, making their division of roles clear. K admits he caused trouble earlier, but signals that he intends to make up for it now. He reassures Yang that he is ready and no longer a liability. Using his power again, K summons a larger, more stable form from the black energy around him. In that form, he formally promises to free the children being used as test subjects and hide them safely here, asking Yang to leave the rest to him. Yang accepts but warns him not to fail. K answers with equal confidence, implying that Yang should worry about his own mission instead. After Yang and Hot leave through the exit, K remains behind alone in the corridor. He grins, eager to turn the trap back on Lion. Cradling his baby body, he vows that if his plan succeeds, Lion's death is near. A nearby surveillance device suddenly locks onto movement with a sharp alert. At the same time, one of the escaped monsters corners a group of terrified children. A hidden mechanism or watcher notices the threat from the wall. The monster prowls along the upper ledge while the spider-like machine tracks the scene below. Kay, still in baby form, secretly observes from behind the machinery and waits for the right moment. The monster lunges, committing to the attack. The children panic and scatter, certain they are about to die. The creature opens its jaws to finish them. Before it can strike, a wave of red dust-like particles and force crashes into it and halts the attack. A small red-eyed child steps forward and extends a hand, revealing unexpected power. From the edge of the structure, Kay climbs up to get a better look at this new anomaly. Peering over the ledge, he stares in stunned silence at the child who just intervened. Watching the chaos unfold, the small boy hears the creature decide which child to seize first. It dismisses the vine-powered child as a poor choice because he would only panic and draw attention. It considers the invisible child next, reasoning that taking away their clothes would neutralize that ability without removing them. That option is rejected too, because those children are still needed to guard the others in this place. Realizing the creature wants the least noticeable victims, the boy quietly decides he will be targeted first. He suddenly unleashes a burst of power to make himself impossible to ignore. The shockwave catches him as well, and he is hurled away before he can fully control the outcome. His outburst throws nearby children off balance too, turning his distraction into a dangerous fall. As he drops with another child, the pursuing creature closes in, showing he has only traded one danger for another. Elsewhere, the facility is alerted that several test subjects have fallen. Observers note that the security robot appears unarmed despite moving among the scattered children. That unexpected agility makes the staff question whether the robot had always been capable of this. Below, the children land amid rubble and broken glass while the creature's body coils through the wreckage around them. The boy pulls himself up and realizes they barely survived the fall. Before he can recover, an unseen presence startles him by demanding to know who he is. The threat shifts to another part of the facility, where a tense silence hangs in a corridor. A pink-haired subordinate is struggling to contain a caged, screaming mass of red-eyed flesh crackling with energy. He forces out a laugh, trying to keep control even as the situation strains him. The creature in the cage surges harder, and his composure starts to break under the pressure. A silver-haired superior arrives, immediately taking in the disorder. He orders the noise suppressed, worried that someone outside might discover what is happening. When the subordinate answers poorly, the superior coldly reminds him of his place as servant to a master. The pink-haired man snaps into a warped, eager obedience at a single humiliating trigger word. The superior is briefly caught off guard by how instantly that conditioning takes hold. He releases a crushing aura of authority that fills the room with menace. The subordinate is overwhelmed and driven to the floor by that power. He immediately apologizes, admitting his earlier tone was disrespectful. Trying to recover, he addresses his mistress with submissive obedience. A white-haired woman in dark clothes appears behind him, asking whether he has failed again. Even under pressure, he forces a strained smile, trying to hide his fear and pain. He clings to her and complains that it hurts, seeking comfort while still acting like a punished pet. She answers with false sympathy that only deepens his distress and humiliation. Still in agony, he is shoved back toward the cage and forced to continue his task. As he struggles to restrain the red-eyed mass, he bitterly questions why a lord like him still has to suffer this much even after receiving the Crimson Blessing. His pain makes him doubt whether the blessing is incomplete, or whether he is still somehow lacking. The caged abomination keeps shrieking and thrashing, proving his control over it is far from secure. The white-haired woman holds him in place from behind, keeping him useful while denying him any real escape. She points out that although he gathered the children, he still has not reported the situation. The silver-haired man excuses the delay by saying everything is still only in the experimental stage. Their conversation reveals the larger goal. They are using the children to create mutants for the coming apocalypse. Back in the ruins, the small boy coughs, still recovering from the fall and the shock of what surrounds him. A hostile child with red eyes steps forward through swirling power and confronts him directly. That child demands to know what the boy is trying to accomplish here. When no answer comes, the red-eyed child attacks and insists on forcing the truth out of him. The boy instantly realizes the strike is serious and dangerous. He is blasted away by the assault before he can properly defend himself. As he tumbles through the air, his attacker grows irritated at having to deal with yet another problem. The boy crashes hard into the ground under the force of the blow. The impact tears up the floor and leaves him pinned in the debris. Even from the crater, he stays defiant and warns his attacker not to struggle too much. A smug child identifies the injured soldier as Xiao-En and immediately takes control of the encounter. Before Xiao-En can respond, red energy whips around her as she braces for a threat she does not understand. In the ruined pit, Xiao-En faces the child while other trapped children watch from behind, making it clear she is outnumbered and being tested. The child points out that Xiao-En survived wounds that should have killed her, treating her survival as something abnormal. He frames her as lucky, saying she not only lived but awakened an ability in the process. He adds that the price of that power was her damaged body, leaving Xiao-En silent and tense. A spider-like surveillance machine keeps its red eye fixed on the scene, showing the confrontation is being monitored. The child mockingly invites Xiao-En to return with him, as if going back to her abusers should be acceptable. Xiao-En tries to justify the cruelty, as necessary sacrifice, and insists Captain Lai has burdens of command. The child dismisses that excuse as delusion. He forces her to look at the abandoned children and asks whether throwing them away can really be called unavoidable. That challenge shakes Xiaoen, and doubt finally breaks through her conditioning. She clings to the only certainty she has left, insisting a soldier's duty is absolute obedience. Driven by that belief, Xiaoen attacks while declaring that Captain Lai himself gave those orders. She refuses to betray those commands, but the child remains more startled by her stubbornness than frightened by her strike. He acknowledges her power, yet concludes she has been thoroughly brainwashed. Deciding words are useless, he rushes straight at her and admits he will settle this by force instead. Xiaoen realizes too late that something far more dangerous is about to emerge from him. A dark armored form manifests around the child, revealing a terrifying combat ability. With eerie calm, he makes his intent plain: he will beat sense into her. The summoned power crashes down toward Xiaoen with overwhelming force. The child drives the attack forward without hesitation. Xiaoen throws up her blade to block, barely stopping the blow. At that moment, the watching machine activates another function. A red beam cuts into the clash, interrupting the fight before the child can finish her. The beam singles Xiaoen out by name, as if someone in authority has entered the conversation. A projected officer appears and challenges Xiaoen's claim, asking since when Captain Lai became the supreme commander of the base. Xiaoen is stunned to realize her superior's authority is being openly overruled. The officer reminds her that soldiers serve humanity first and declares that using children for experiments can never be justified. Speaking as the true supreme commander of the base, he issues Xiaoen a direct order. He commands her to protect the child beside her and get all the children to safety. Xiaoen steadies herself as her loyalty is forcibly redirected by a higher authority. She accepts the command at once and falls in line, taking responsibility for the children. Elsewhere in the facility, the focus shifts to a corridor where another group is approaching. 3 adults advance through the hall, clearly coming to clean up the aftermath. One of them complains about having to collect discarded children, showing complete contempt for the victims. Another treats the situation as a convenient chance to test new powers. A third assumes they can cover up any deaths and silence witnesses without consequence. Then one of the snake-like appendages reacts to something incoming. The group halts as an unexpected disturbance approaches from ahead. A heavy rushing sound fills the corridor, warning that something large is bearing down on them. The adults turn in alarm, suddenly unsure of what is coming. The answer arrives as the child barrels through the corridor in a coffin-like sled carrying the rescued kids with him. He gleefully orders the children to keep moving forward, turning their escape into a charge. When someone tries to assert control, he snaps back that they do not get to command their own side here. The children lurch along with him, overwhelmed but still being carried to safety. The 3 adults can only stare as the bizarre vehicle tears straight through their position. The child sizes them up and dismisses them as insignificant obstacles. Without slowing down, he smashes through the corridor ahead and keeps the escape route open. The improvised transport surges onward through the shattered passage, carrying the children away from the base's enforcers. A surge of white matter tears through the corridor, knocking armed men off their feet and turning the escape into open chaos. A battered commander realizes the children have broken loose and curses them while trying to regain control. He grabs his radio and urgently calls for reinforcements. He orders every security team to converge at once because the specimen's situation has spiraled out of control. The guards receive the alarm and learn the entire facility is already in disarray. Meanwhile, the small boy complains that the adults are making too much noise as he keeps moving. The girl at the control station braces herself, preparing to intervene. Watching the facility map fill with incoming enemies, she warns that everyone is heading straight toward their location. When told it is fine because they have her support, she sees through the manipulation and notes they plan to use her to clean up this mess anyway. Even so, she decides to help and deploys the mechanical arms attached to her back. Her extra limbs flex into position, ready to work at high speed. She launches a furious multi-handed hacking assault to seize control of the system. Elsewhere, the guards hear a sudden disturbance and turn toward it. The children burst through on a makeshift boat riding the white surge, laughing as they crash into the corridor. The guards immediately give chase, determined not to let them escape. But the facility's automated defenses suddenly activate overhead. Gunfire erupts from the system, and the pursuing guards panic as friendly fire tears into their path. Using the confusion, the children slip deeper through the passage while the soldiers take cover. The guards try to stay quiet and wait out the danger, realizing something hostile is approaching. The boys' attack reaches them first, smashing into the hidden defense unit and blowing it apart. On the map, multiple hostile points vanish as the route ahead is violently cleared. The children sail past stunned guards who can only watch them go, and the boy is pleased with how easily they were disrupted. He smugly mocks the organization's once feared intelligence branch for proving this incompetent. Still, he stays alert and has his tiny spider companion keep watch ahead. Back in the control room, the girl admits she cannot command any robots in that area and concludes someone else has already arrived there first. She warns the boy that Lion's elite forces are ahead, forcing him to recognize a real threat is waiting. A line of hardened operatives blocks the corridor, and even they are uneasy about facing children so openly. Their leader treats it like a contest, eager to prove which side can kill more efficiently. Another operative agrees casually and jokes that if they win, he wants a proper meat meal as his reward. The rest accept the brutal game without hesitation and prepare to take everything. At a signal, the squad opens fire together and floods the corridor with bullets. One of the children realizes too late just how overwhelming the attack is. The boy throws up a towering wall of white matter and orders everyone not to move. The barrage slams into the barrier in a relentless storm, shredding and cracking it under sustained fire. A bullet finally punches through the defense. The shot races straight toward the blue-haired child, leaving her frozen in terror. At the last instant, a black tendril lashes across the line of fire and knocks the bullet away. The boy realizes the enemy's firepower is too strong to keep blocking forever. Knowing he cannot afford to be stalled here, he decides he has to transform despite the cost. Before he can act, another shot slips in from the side and catches him off guard. An elite soldier has flanked their position and fires from above the broken barrier. A second gunman angles in from another side, trapping the children in a crossfire. The boy lunges to intercept, but he knows he is too late to stop every shot. One bullet closes in on him as he stares at it helplessly. He strains in desperation, refusing to let the attack end here. With a scream, he unleashes a force that seizes the bullet in mid-flight. The round halts, caught and redirected by his power. One of the elite soldiers is suddenly struck instead, shocked that the shot has turned back on them. The redirected bullet continues on a new path, now threatening one of the children. A cry rings out as the danger shifts again, and the outcome of the ricochet remains uncertain. A storm of metal and ice suddenly erupts around the soldiers, turning the room into a killing zone. One of the armed men realizes too late that something impossible is controlling both the metal and the freezing air. As the squad tries to counterattack, they are already being outmaneuvered by a far faster opponent. The childlike protagonist narrows his focus and commits to finishing the ambush. In an instant, the attackers are butchered, proving the children's side can wipe out trained soldiers without hesitation. After the slaughter, the protagonist notices the bald boy standing amid ice spikes and starts piecing together what each child can do. He identifies the bald boy's powers as magnetic control combined with freezing, adding another useful asset to their group. The scene shifts to the base's central elevator platform, their apparent route to escape. The vast shaft around it emphasizes how exposed and dangerous the approach will be. A force suddenly launches upward through the shaft, signaling that someone has found a way to move fast through the metal structure. The children ride a small boat-like craft up the shaft at extreme speed. Realizing the shaft's core is metal too, the protagonist orders the magnetic pull increase so they can keep climbing. The improvised vessel shoots higher, using the structure itself as a path upward. The ride turns violent, but the group holds together as they skim along the shaft walls. They continue racing toward the elevator platform, gambling everything on reaching it first. The children brace themselves for impact and arrival. They finally reach the platform, and the protagonist confirms this is the place they needed. A voice explains that this elevator leads to the base exit, though the processing area still lies below, forcing a choice about what comes next. The protagonist is ready to dismiss the original escape plan and consider a more aggressive move. Before he can continue, someone gets his attention from behind. A small pendant is offered to him. The blue-haired girl gives it to him in gratitude and calls him Big Brother, openly acknowledging him as her protector. Her thanks make him remember how overwhelming his power looked to the others earlier. The girl admits she has not been able to say thank you to anyone in a long time. He is quietly moved, especially by being treated like an older brother despite being just another child among them. That brief warmth ends when a hostile voice asks whether their playtime is over. A newcomer steps onto the platform with calm confidence. The children look down and see a white-haired young man approaching them alone, as if he already owns the battlefield. He arrives smiling, completely at ease despite facing the group. Lion immediately moves in front of the others to shield them. The intruder claims he is not there to fight yet and says he only came to deliver a message. Lion's graduation ceremony has been moved up. The protagonist is startled when a spider-like device on him reacts to the announcement. Elsewhere, the hacker girl is shaken because she had blocked surveillance and alarms, yet the enemy still found them. She realizes their concealment has failed far too easily to be chance. The intruder reveals he already knows she is the master's grandson and praises her hacking, implying he has been tracking them personally. He adds that one thing cannot be blocked, hinting at a deeper detection method tied to the base itself. That hidden factor is the caged object known as the Egg of Calamity. The object begins reacting violently. Its response sends an alarm through the facility, forcing everyone to notice. Operators monitoring the base are jolted by the sudden change. The white-haired man demands an explanation from the control staff. A woman informs him that the Egg of Calamity is resonating. She casually asks whether any of the escaped children seemed especially interesting, implying one of them may be extraordinary. The intruder concludes the egg is reacting to someone among the children, which makes him more cautious and more interested. The protagonist, hearing this, asks what the Egg of Calamity actually is. At the same time, soldiers seal off the route behind the children, trapping them on the platform. The intruder compliments the protagonist's unusually strong life force, confirming he has already judged him as special. He admits he underestimated the child. Then, deciding the protagonist is doomed anyway, he refuses to explain further. Before he can press the attack, a dark tendril of power rises from the protagonist and interrupts the moment. Both sides are caught off guard by the sudden manifestation. More troops enter the platform, escalating the standoff. A senior officer steps forward. The old commander arrives with the authority to change the entire balance of the scene. The intruder is visibly surprised to see his own master appear in person. The commander publicly accuses Lion of betraying the unit and plotting to kill his comrades. The gathered soldiers hear the charge and begin to accept that Lion may be a traitor. As captain of the Snow Wolf squad, the commander orders Lion to drop his weapon immediately. Even Lion's own men are shaken by the accusation. Before anyone can process it, grotesque blood masses erupt across one soldier's body. The infected man begs Lion to save him, revealing his loyalty even as he dies. He explodes in a shower of blood, proving the commander has planted hidden death triggers in his subordinates. Lion coldly asks whether anyone else still thinks he is the traitor. The commander recognizes the technique at once as a blood bomb. He realizes in horror that Lion implanted such bombs throughout the squad. Lion refuses to let the commander look away from the consequences. The surviving soldiers collapse one after another, their faces bound and their bodies overtaken by the same blood control. Using the chaos, Lion launches a direct attack on his master. For the first time, the commander is forced into genuine alarm. Lion bids his master farewell and attacks with killing intent. The commander barely blocks the strike with his staff. Lion is surprised that the old man can still defend himself at that speed. He praises the commander's reaction time, but only as a prelude to finishing him. The protagonist suddenly intervenes, smashing into the commander's staff and disrupting the duel. He realizes Lion's sword technique is abnormal and starts analyzing it instead of panicking. He deduces that the blade works by resonating with body fluids the instant it touches skin. That resonance shreds tissue from the inside, making even a shallow cut lethal. But he also sees the weakness. The blade is only hardened blood, not true steel, so it can be blocked by something solid. Even so, if it gets through flesh, the victim's body collapses almost instantly. The commander and Lion resume exchanging blows while the child keeps studying the fight. Lion turns to the remaining soldiers and calmly tests whether fear will make them submit. He offers them a choice: side with him or be purged. The soldiers hesitate, trapped between terror of Lion and loyalty to command. One of them finally chooses resistance and opens fire. Gunfire and flames erupt across the platform as the standoff becomes open battle. The commander is startled by how quickly the situation has spiraled beyond control. He reaches for a hidden measure. Another soldier is cut down in the confusion, showing Lion is still killing while everyone is distracted. Lion draws his blade back, pleased that the battlefield is breaking apart exactly as he wanted. He mocks his master for relying on clever tricks instead of strength. Then he unleashes a sweeping attack meant to make evasion impossible. The slash tears through another body, proving he can kill through the crowd without slowing down. The commander is wounded and forced to spit blood. Even injured, he stays upright over the fallen, refusing to yield. Lion tells him it is time to step back, speaking as though victory is already decided. He declares that no one on the platform will be allowed to escape. With the commander weakened, Lion turns his attention back to the rest of the trapped group. He advances toward the children, making himself the immediate threat again. Lion stands in front of the others, tense but still protecting them. The protagonist rejects the idea that they are cornered. He openly challenges Lion by asking who said they were running away. That answer catches Lion off guard. He turns just in time to see the battlefield changing behind him. He realizes the commander he struck was only a substitute, which explains why the kill felt wrong. The protagonist smugly notes that the deception was troublesome but necessary. He admits controlling several substitutes at once is exhausting, revealing he has been manipulating the fight more than anyone realized. The hacker girl joins in from the control room and announces herself. She explains that she designed the exoskeleton armor, but the military denied her operating rights out of stubbornness. Now the stored armored units begin descending into the shaft. Their activation platforms light up, confirming they are coming online. The real commander appears inside one of the exoskeleton suits, armed and restored to fighting condition. The protagonist and the commander exchange knowing looks, now acting in coordination. A brief recollection reveals how this countermeasure was arranged. Earlier, the protagonist had asked whether the military still had unused equipment in storage. The commander immediately understood the implication. He said such gear existed, but using it against their own people would normally require military approval and a compelling reason. The protagonist argued that the current betrayal and massacre were reason enough. The commander agreed and revealed that top-level approval had already been secured. Back in the present, red targeting beams lock onto Lion from every direction. For the first time in a while, Lion looks genuinely pressured. The commander addresses everyone and takes command of the operation. He orders the exoskeleton units to begin combat. Lion finds himself surrounded by armed suits and overlapping target locks. One armored unit demands his surrender in the commander's voice. Lion answers by addressing his master with mocking respect instead of complying. He remarks that the commander was willing to bring out stored equipment, after all. Even now, Lion insists the outcome is still undecided. The commander stops talking and orders the units to cut him down. The armored soldiers open fire in unison, filling the platform with explosions. Some of the shots strike armor and metal as the barrage saturates the area. Human troops caught in the crossfire are torn apart, showing the commander is willing to sacrifice anyone still in the kill zone. Lion counters by unleashing a storm of purple-edged slashes through the incoming fire. His sword waves carve through the barrage and the surrounding space, keeping the armored line from closing in. Even so, he is hit and starts bleeding, proving the exoskeleton assault can wound him. He grits his teeth as the pressure mounts. Refusing to be pinned down, he gathers himself for a desperate counter. A massive explosion erupts among the armored units, forcing them to recoil. The exoskeleton squad keeps firing through the flames, trying to finish him before he escapes again. Smoke swallows the battlefield and hides Lion from sight. The commander switches the suit to thermal imaging to track him through the smoke. The system activates, turning the hunt into a technological advantage. Through the thermal scope, Lion's heat signature is clearly marked inside the smoke cloud. The commander commits to the shot. A powerful beam lances down into the smoke, blasting the ground apart where Lion stood. But Lion bursts out of the strike zone alive, badly wounded yet still moving with terrifying speed. Something small flies loose from him in the chaos, suggesting the hit damaged more than flesh. He lands amid blood and debris, still standing despite the punishment. Smiling through his injuries, Lion raises his hand as if preparing another hidden move. His eyes burn with renewed intent, showing he has not accepted defeat. Even the armored commander is left momentarily uncertain about what Lion will do next. A child suddenly realizes the battle has taken a dangerous turn. Panicking, he screams for the defenders to keep firing before the enemy closes in. The hooded gunmen hesitate in shock as something unexpected interrupts their attack. A white-haired fighter drops into the fray and warns that the enemy is already too close for a simple response. His crimson power tears through the battlefield at once, cutting down multiple attackers in an instant. The slaughter continues so brutally that the enemy formation is drenched in blood before it can recover. He gathers more energy, extending his control outward as if preparing to command the entire field. Under that influence, fallen or weakened bodies begin to pile and shift unnaturally. One of the enemy soldiers is dragged into the mass, losing control of his own body. The writhing heap swells into a grotesque lump, as if flesh is being forced into a new shape. From the carnage, monstrous undead-like creatures and skeletal forms are brought forth to join the fight. The remaining hooded soldiers are stunned as the battlefield suddenly fills with summoned horrors. Their armored commander forces them to hold formation and keep shooting despite the shock. The squad unleashes a coordinated volley at the advancing monsters. The summoned creatures crash through the barrage and tear into the shooters, overwhelming their line. One beast breaks through toward the children, sending them into alarm as it lunges. A red-eyed boy steps forward and releases a sharp burst of power to intercept it. His strike slams into the creature before it can reach the group. The monster shrieks as the blow lands cleanly. The impact blasts it backward and away from the children. Even while holding it off, the boy realizes the enemy monsters are far stronger than he expected. A girl, shaken and near tears, wonders how a battle they seemed ready to win collapsed so badly and suspects their supposed tank may be the reason. The boy ignores the complaint and decides their priority is evacuating everyone, because he cannot protect the old man otherwise. Elsewhere, the white-haired fighter arms himself with dark spectral blades and prepares for the next wave. Facing towering summoned entities and an airborne foe, he calmly notes to his master that this is their first real fight in a long time. He answers his own excitement with a grin, embracing that the battle is now truly life or death. The armored enemy leader watches in silence, measuring him. Then the commander dismisses him as insignificant, and readies a heavier weapon. As he calls the fighter by name, he fires a blue energy attack. The blast rips through the smoke and churns up the ground around the summoned creatures. The strike erupts into a violent swirl of energy, threatening to engulf everything nearby. The attack punches into the structure itself, showing the commander's firepower can devastate the surroundings as well. From above, another observer remarks that the fight is becoming entertaining. A second figure, eager to interfere, asks to be allowed into the battle. Meanwhile, the summoned monsters keep carving through the hooded troops, preventing the defenders from regaining control. One creature charges a soldier directly, and the commander orders his men to destroy the enemy quickly without underestimating them. The soldier obeys at once even as explosions and attacks close in around him. A pale multi-limbed creature crashes onto him and pins him down before he can escape. The monster mauls him at close range, finishing him amid the flames. Another hooded soldier suddenly triggers a strange effect around himself, as if shifting out of normal sight. The multi-headed creature lunges again, but its attack meets an unexpected absence. The soldier realizes his camouflage has worked, and the monster has lost track of him. He fully activates the concealment mode, committing to a stealth counterattack. Now nearly invisible, he slips behind the creature and drives in with a decisive strike. His movement stays low and fast, using the opening before the enemy can turn. He follows with a powerful downward blow that smashes the creature into the ground. Without pausing, he whips into another cutting attack to finish it. The creature screams as the strike tears through the cluster of heads and tendrils at its core. Its body convulses in shock, the central mass rupturing under the assault. As the monster reels with its core exposed and failing, the soldier keeps his weapon trained on it to ensure the kill. A cloaked armored fighter stands over strange remains threaded with blue tendrils, keeping watch in a tense, hostile silence. Nearby, someone quietly triggers an ability, setting a hidden move into motion. The corpse-like mass suddenly erupts with violent purple energy, as if reactivated into a final attack. The armored fighter is caught off guard by the unexpected surge. The blast detonates before he can fully respond, swallowing the area in destructive force. He is hurled away and cut up by the impact, losing control of the battlefield for a moment. Into that opening, Lion steps forward, making clear that true command of a fight means carrying it through to the end. He takes control of the momentum, surrounded by dark violet power and armed for the finishing exchange. The armored opponent recognizes the shift and falls into wary silence. A fast attack streaks across the space as the clash resumes at high speed. Lion crashes in through the pressure, forcing the armored fighter to confront him head-on. A shadowy purple entity begins to manifest from Lion's power. That dark force coils around the armored body, probing for a weakness in the suit. The energy condenses into a predatory shape and bites down with lethal intent. The armored fighter is seized and momentarily restrained by the shadow attack. The pressure cracks part of the armor, suggesting Lion may have found a way through its defenses. Lion realizes the problem at once. This armor should only be breakable with a blood crystal taken from a corpse, so the damage makes no sense. The answer comes immediately as the suit drives its electromagnetic pulse output to maximum. Lion is startled by the sudden escalation and understands he misread the opening. The armored fighter bursts free inside a blazing golden field, repelling the attack and resetting the distance. Even as the pulse flares, traces of Lion's dark energy still cling to the suit. Lion is shaken that the armor still had such a function left in reserve. The armored fighter brings his gun to bear, preparing to punish that hesitation. He begins to suspect something important about Lion's condition or strategy. Seeing Lion airborne, he points out that changing direction in midair should be impossible and treats him as a trapped target. Lion answers with a calm smile, as if inviting the enemy to test whether that assumption is true. In the next instant, the armored fighter is suddenly impaled and left bleeding, as though Lion's unseen attack has already reached him. The wound tears through the cloak and body, confirming the strike landed cleanly. The armored fighter retaliates immediately, whipping his cloak and weapon around to cut off Lion's advantage. As the cloak sweeps past, he notices a suspicious object or contact point near his back and realizes something has been attached to him. Lion's focused stare reveals that this was the moment he had been waiting for. The attached device fires with sudden force, unleashing a close-range blast. At the same time, Lion drives a massive shadow beast forward, turning the detonation into part of a coordinated assault. His dark strike slams into the armored fighter's side, exploiting the opening created by the blast. Bloodied but pleased, Lion decides fortune has finally tilted in his favor. He presses in aggressively, reaching out to control the follow-up while keeping his blade ready overhead. But the armored fighter refuses to collapse and spins back into offense through the swirling cloak. He counters with a heavy blue-edged strike that forces Lion away and breaks the rhythm of the assault. Planting his footing, the armored fighter stabilizes himself and regains full control of his stance. From that solid base, he turns to face the wounded Lion, who is now the one pushed back and bleeding badly. The two pause in grim silence, measuring each other while Lion clutches a severe neck wound. The armored fighter declares that this is the end for Lion and moves to finish him. He activates a mechanism on his weapon, preparing a final shot. Lion remains in place despite the blood loss, enduring the moment as if he still expects something to happen. When the shot fires, it strikes a purple crystal lodged at Lion's neck instead of killing him outright. The impact triggers a violent explosion that engulfs the area and throws both combatants into chaos. Through the blast, the armored fighter realizes too late that he has been baited. The explosion hurls Lion backward, but he survives the detonation. Clutching the crystal at his neck, Lion confirms to himself that his gamble worked exactly as intended. He rises from the smoke and reveals the truth. He deliberately exposed a decisive opening in order to lure the master out and force this outcome. The white-haired fighter reveals he had already anticipated his opponent would not be fooled. Badly wounded but still standing, he drops into a crouch amid the wreckage and challenges the enemy to confirm it. The older man, blood running down his face, falls silent as he gauges what this means. Nearby, 3 children watch the clash unfold, with the smallest stepping forward as dark energy begins to stir around him. The child mockingly calls out the armored enemy for struggling in a situation like this. A spider-like machine is told not to rush, because their side is only beginning its move. In a hidden control room, a green-eyed girl works through a bank of monitors and commits fully to the operation. Her system finishes collecting data, confirming complete analysis of the enemy's combat style, power, and damage state. Using that information, she confidently declares that she has found the most efficient strategy. She launches her machines into action with a command to her lovely girls. The smallest child braces himself as the plan starts around him. A heavy strike crashes down nearby, shaking the battlefield. Multiple spider drones descend at speed, surrounding the area with hostile intent. The older man protests the unfairness of turning the fight into 2 against 1, but insists that is exactly the point. The drones close in around the armored foe while the white-haired fighter watches, and the old man urges the enemy not to dismiss them as a nuisance. The white-haired fighter remains calm despite the crystal growths spreading from his shoulder, waiting to see the result. The smallest child takes offense at being called dead weight, and reminds everyone they are dealing with him. The blue-haired girl throws herself into the fight, determined that if she did not have to protect the others, she would have already handled the weaklings. Her dark tendrils lash out and smash into the armored enemy, forcing him back while the other children cower. The smallest child complains that babysitting these helpless kids is the only thing holding him back. His power wraps around the two frightened children and yanks them out of danger. With a smug grin, he scolds them for doing nothing but getting beaten and decides they will at least be useful as support. The rescued children panic at being dragged into the battle, but he refuses to let them opt out. At the same time, a hulking purple monster charges forward to continue the assault. The smallest child orders the crying boy to do the impossible and get moving. The monster swings down at the boy, threatening to crush him outright. Terrified, the boy screams as he is forced to act under pressure. His power suddenly manifests above the monster, trapping it beneath a rain of sharp energy constructs. Seeing that, the smallest child realizes the boy may actually be useful. The armored enemy bursts through the chaos and closes in, while the smallest child keeps the others moving through the battlefield. The older child asks whether his blasts can knock away an opponent whose entire body is metal, and the frightened boy agrees to try. He steadies himself and begins gathering power in both hands. His twin blasts hit cleanly and hurl the metal-bodied enemy away. The smallest child is delighted that the two useless bystanders have finally become effective support. A silver-haired observer watches with unease, recognizing how abnormal the child's control and attitude are. As the smallest child proudly directs the others, one of the onlookers concludes he is essentially a demon. Elsewhere, the spider drones open fire, adding explosions to the pressure on the enemy side. The white-haired fighter uses the opening to launch a rapid, multi-angled sword assault. He drives forward despite the crystal corruption spreading across his face, intent on finishing the exchange quickly. Sensing another threat, he looks up sharply in the middle of his attack. He twists away as a sweeping strike comes at him from behind, revealing a new attacker entering the fight. A huge electrified net suddenly unfurls overhead, threatening to trap the entire area. The white-haired fighter is caught off guard by the sudden deployment. He leaps back to avoid being pinned as the net drops toward the ground. From behind him, the older man and a spider drone close in, turning the retreat into another ambush. In the control room, the green-eyed girl orders her machines to bring him down immediately. The net slams into the battlefield and crushes the drones below, disrupting the attack in a way no one expected. The smallest child angrily tells the other boy to stop overdoing his power, but the boy insists he was not responsible. A fresh impact lands nearby, making it clear that another force has just entered the battlefield. A new figure steps into the dust with a satisfied sense of arrival, announcing that the real confrontation can finally begin. A purple-haired young man calmly reveals that his sister authorized him to act, showing he is moving with confidence and backing. His unsettling smile makes it clear he is pleased with the situation and fully in control of what comes next. The story then shifts into a memory from long ago at a research institute, tracing the origin of that twisted confidence. As a child, he reached out toward a butterfly with innocent curiosity, drawn to a fragile life he wanted to touch. He chased it eagerly, still carrying the openness and excitement of someone trying to connect with the world around him. But the other children recoiled and warned each other away, treating him as someone dangerous and out of place even there. Ignoring their fear, he gently caught the butterfly instead of harming it. He handled it with surprising care, trying to approach it tenderly rather than as a specimen or toy. With sincere hope, he offered friendship to the tiny creature, revealing how desperately he wanted a bond that would not reject him. For a brief moment, the butterfly resting in his hand seemed to answer that wish. Then it suddenly died in his grasp, turning his attempt at connection into another violent loss. He froze in shock as the pattern became impossible to ignore. Even what he cherished could not survive contact with him. Surrounded by dead animals, he broke down and began questioning why every living thing around him perished so easily. His grief turned into anguished self-awareness as he realized his very existence seemed to bring death. At that lowest moment, someone approached, drawn by his despair and the carnage around him. A woman answered his pain by telling him that this deadly abnormality made him special rather than cursed. Her touch interrupted his panic, giving him the first sense that someone was willing to come close instead of recoiling. She finally offered to take him with her, becoming the person who transformed his isolation into loyalty and dependence.